Good morning, Unleashed Lund loyalists. Thanks for tuning in live each weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. Remember, please like and subscribe and listen where you get your podcasts. Be on the lookout for Lund loyalists perks by joining the club. And if you really want your comments read during the show, you can use supers and stickers. Now, as close to on time as he gets, here's Johnny.
Oh, that's it. I thought we had a music bed. What the heck happened here? There you go. Let me see if I can get the fancy music bed. I don't like going into something dry. I thought I had this. Oh, you know what? The music is down. There you go. How about that? All right. That's better. Totally ill-prepared on Wednesday. But I got to tell you, I am a few minutes late because we have so much going on today. There you go. Chrome Dome Day. Saleh and Middlekauff. Now, I got to be honest. Middlekauff can't join us till about 10 a.m. Pacific. So we got 2 hours ahead of us. But we got more than 2 hours of content as you sit there. Now, Middlekauff has a hat on, so you can't see his beautiful chrome dome. But there is Robert Sala's beautiful chrome dome, and much has changed since I was overly optimistic at 80% that Salah was going to come back to the 49ers and have a reunion. Reunited, and it feels so good. Yeah, you didn't think you needed that this early in the morning. You probably did not. There it is. But I have my happy face on today, or my happy face hat, because it's not as grim as it seems. So let's go over the things we are going to discuss today. And we do have an absolute ton. Let me move myself over so that you can see everything. Let me just move this little thing over. There you go. That's a little bit better. And then you can see everything that is going on today, because we are busy. We are getting a bunch of people in the room. Thanks to those who are watching on Instagram and X. If you would subscribe to the YouTube channel, John Lund Unleashed Pod, that would be outstanding. We are growing the community by the day. If you like podcasts, we're on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your favorite podcast as well. I got a website, one place for everything, JohnLundUnleashed.com. I have a blog up right now on Robert Sala that I wrote late yesterday, and have a video, and I'm starting to do these shorter videos as well, so that are pretty cool. I think I have this thing on loop, but let me just, I'm going to share, let this music go for a minute, and if it gets annoying, then we'll turn it off. But just real quick, I want to share my screen with you, because I did write this yesterday on Robert Sala, which we're going to lead with. Share screen, make sure that it's not on anything inappropriate. Right there, we're going to share that. There you go. So that's the new website. This is just the blog part of it. What are the chances Robert Sala and a 49ers reunion now? So not only do we have a video that you can watch, it's about 7 minutes long, so it's real easy if you're in your cubicle or something, just get my thoughts, but then I wrote about it as well. His head coaching opportunities in that first paragraph, and the second one, what are the other defensive coordinator positions that would be out there? And if not Robert Sala, then who? And you're not going to be happy with that part of it. So anyway, there is the new website. I could probably go to the front page as well just to impress you here. But anyway, that's, yeah, there you go. Right there, meet your host. You can go to that part. Oh, we are on loop. Damn it. Your latest YouTube shows. There's yesterday's latest podcast. And then you click that button down there. You can get all of them. Same with the blog posts. You got those. And then you can click for more. So there's the fancy new website. There's all your social media at the top right-hand corner. So if you want to just go to one place rather than the 50 places that I normally send you, then that would be a convenient spot. So good morning. Good morning. Let me get this damn annoying music off. I thought I had it on not to loop, but it's looping. It does this on its own. I swear, it's not me. It's not my ineptness. Stop looping. There we go. I turned off the loop. All right, let's fade this thing down. Yeah, that's enough of you. Funky bed open. Good morning. Thank you. I am so inept today, but it's for good reason, because there is so much to talk about. Let me say hello to everybody. Man, look there was a ton of people in. Hello, John. Tacky started at 7:29 in the morning. I will tell you why I'm going to be late. Not that this excuses anything. Skills report is here. 59:50. Hey-o! Tacky, Pine Needle, Enrique. You're right. Estimate Diaz, right? Estimate Diaz in the house. And you said yesterday, hey, he can't pronounce my name. Estimate Diaz. So I said yesterday, I'm like, I can't do that. I can't just slip over his name. Hurleybird, AJ Cruz. Everybody is in the house today. Good morning, Joy. And Joy was like, you're thinking 80% on Salah? We're going to explain that in just a second. because I still do have a lot of optimism, despite the fact that one thing, hi, Vernon, changed this morning. So we will get into that conversation. Danny Golden is here. Jason is here. I did see Cohen, so we're going to get into that conversation in just a second. Who else do we have? Everybody's worried about Robert Sala, so we're going to have that conversation, and I want to get you involved as well. So who else? Everybody is here. Thank you so much. Thank you for growing the community. We're almost at 2,500 now after just about 6 weeks. So everything is according to plan. Good morning, Steve. What happened there? Good to see you. All right, let's do this. Let's discuss, because at the top there, and if nothing, we go by the chalkboard. So episode 38, Saleh chances. Maybe they're a little bit less than what I wrote on the blog on the website yesterday, but I still have great optimism, and I will tell you why. Yep, Staley is probably the second guy in line for the defensive coordinator for the 49ers, unless we don't know something. And I will explain both the pros and the cons. I know that you think mostly they are cons, but there are a few pros. We'll get into how much coaching matters. 49ers Day, what that means is today back in 1989, it is a pretty good day for the 49ers. And you know me, I like to go back in time. Middlekauff there. And I do have a little bit of a Middlekauff. You know who Middlekauff is. John Middlekauff does 3 and Out. Used to work with me at 95.7 The Game. We've stayed pals ever since. He's rocketed to the top, and I'm trying to get where he is. But there's Middlekauff right there. Make sure that you're following him at John Middlekauff, as he says, podcaster, entrepreneur. He moved to Scottsdale, he outkicked his coverage by a mile. He knows that. And he's going to join us at about 10 o'clock. So what we're going to do is, as I kind of put him in the middle, what we're going to do is start with a lot of football talk, go to the Hall of Fame, which is now the Hall of Very Good. Ichiro, Wagner, CC Sabathia, Northern California's own. There's a piece out today. I'm trying to get this guy on the show from Yahoo, which is Kevin O'Connor. And he has written a couple of pieces. If you reference a few days ago, we talked about one of his pieces. And now he has ramped it up to Golden State has to blow it up. But I don't necessarily disagree with him, and I'll show you the piece. If we don't get him today, then we'll probably get him tomorrow. We're kind of playing a little bit of back and forth when he can work it out. So we'll get into that conversation as well. Off topics, which just happens throughout the show. If you're new here, you guys send me into a tangent because I have ADD. And so I read the comments. I don't really read all the comments, so I just pick a piece of the comments. Like, what did we get into yesterday? First car. I don't know. We never know where it's going to go, which is part of the fun of the show. So we just go off topics, which I think is a thing. And then the Sweet, Clean, Family-Friendly Caboose Pistol, which I actually had one yesterday, and I didn't get to it. And so we'll make sure that we get to that today. As far as video is concerned, that 49ers Day we have today, Billy Wagner crying, and something from Kevin O'Connor's piece that I will play for you as well. So let's start at the top, because that's what everybody is talking about on the comments line. And again, you can always hit me up on the comments line. You can hit me up if you are in the Instagram room as well. In fact, let me go to the Instagram room and say hello to everybody before we get started. Hello, everyone. There you go. There's my pecking along the way. Hello, everyone on Instagram. I just said hello to everybody. That made the screen black, so that might be a problem. We are live on X as well. So there we go. We are good to go. In fact, let me just get into the room because I try to get 3 rooms going at once. I got 2 screens going on now. I got a lot smarter. But anyway, we have everything going in that room as well. All right, everybody is caught up to date. Let's start with Robert Sala. So I wrote the piece yesterday. Let me go back for a minute, and then I will update you on what has changed this morning, if anything. So I think we all agree that we want Robert Sala to be the defensive coordinator of the 49ers. Brandon Staley right now would be the backup. I'll get into that. I know you're booing and hissing and throwing things at your screen or however you're watching, whatever platform you're watching, and you don't want to talk about him. I understand that. But let's start with Robert Sala. So as of yesterday, I'm looking at the whole situation here. Let me just share my screen again, just because it's better to look at this than to look at me, which is absolutely 100% the case. So let me go just to this piece on the website here. I want to share that. There we go. Let's go to the blog. I'm just showing you how to, it's not like you can't figure this out on your own. So we go to the blog, and that's the wrong thing. Come on, man. What's wrong with me? Can I work under pressure here? There we go. So what are the chances of a Robert Sala 49ers reunion? I write. So let's click on read more. My God. All right. So I actually it's 5 minutes on it. It's about 7 minutes. I can't even clear my throat in 5 minutes. So I talk about what are the chances. In this first paragraph, I talk about where he could be headed. And so I say in there, it looks like Liam Cohen, because even the Buccaneers yesterday, the offensive coordinator of the Bucs was going to go to Jacksonville. He this morning then signed an extension, of course, after I write this. The Raiders could be looking at Pete Carroll, but then there's some reports this morning that there's a few other candidates. Carroll could change the culture in Las Vegas. That might be something. And then, as I point out here, the Dallas Cowboys will just elongate theirs because Jerry Jones likes to be in the spotlight, and then he'll probably get somebody like Brian Schottenheimer, or my favorite the whole time for them is Kellen Moore. So that's what I think. So that would leave Robert Sala out of this coaching cycle as far as head coaching is concerned. Then I go down to the point where it says, would Robert Sala take a different defensive coordinator job? I mentioned the 49ers, of course, with his connection with the 49ers and Kyle Shanahan, and keeping in mind the whole time that his goal obviously is to get a head coaching job in the next 1 to 2 years after this one. The 49ers, I think, would top that list. The Lions would be number 2. Now, here's one thing I don't know about Robert Sala. Everybody thinks everybody wants to go home, right? I can't wait to go home. I can't wait to go home, like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. But reality is, I don't know how much family Robert Sala still has in the Detroit area. He's from a suburb called Dearborn, which is where a lot of the car plants are. It's not the greatest suburb ever, but I don't know how much family Robert Sala has back there if he wants to move back there. I lived in Detroit. It's not the greatest place ever, but the other side of that is, so not knowing if Robert Sala wants to go home, but the other side of it is the Lions do have some good young defenders, as I write here, led by the return of Aiden Hutchinson, Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone at linebacker, and a good secondary led by Brian Branch. So would that get him more quickly, I tell you, to a head coaching job? Well, the Lions are going to win. I don't know his relationship with Dan Campbell. The Raiders are interesting if Pete Carroll will get that job in Vegas, because Saleh worked under Carroll in Seattle. Would he choose that defense, which basically has Max Crosby, Christian Wilkins, and not much else? Probably not. Cowboys have gone for big-name defensive coordinators in the past, but again, he would have to look at that defense and say, okay, you've got Micah Parsons there. What else? I mean, you got a couple of DBs, but Diggs is on that team. There's a couple of guys, but I don't think that defense is better than what Robert Sala would have here in San Francisco. So I came to the conclusion that if he doesn't get a head coaching job, and the defensive coordinator jobs that are open would be 49ers, Lions, Raiders, Cowboys, others, Jacksonville, but he's interviewing for that job, which I'll get to in a second. And then I got down to, and I'll flash this for you later, of course, I know you're going to get angry with me, but it sounds like right now the backup plan is Brandon Staley. Now, as I write here, he was the defensive coordinator of the Rams in 2020, as you can see. And if you go down to team ranks, see, it says culture and results. That was him with the Chargers. If you go down to team ranks in 2020, his defense was number 1 in points, number 1 in yards, and they had 1 touchdown allowed and 12 interceptions in 2020. So he was great. He parlayed that into the Chargers job, in which defensively, I'm just going to look at his defense. I don't care about him going for it on 4th down or being wacky or weird or whatever. He was 24-24 as a coach. Because you're not a good head coach does not mean you're not going to be a great coordinator. Because you're a great coordinator does not mean you're going to be a great head coach. They're 2 separate things. But the thing I would worry about is, in his 3 years in Charger land, his defense was 29th, 21st, and 24th in points. And as far as overall yards were concerned, they were terrible in yards allowed as well. In yards, they were 23rd, 20th, and 28th. So combine that with last year, where he has to take some culpability, Brandon Staley, in what happened defensively for the 49ers. They weren't very good, and their defensive coordinator, Nick Sorensen, as you well know, I'm just treading on some ground we already know about here, he was fired. So he was part of after 1 year, defensive staff that got fired. His 3 years with the Chargers were not very good, as I just told you. He had 1 great year with the Rams in 2020, first in yards, first in points, 1 touchdown allowed in their passing defense with 12 interceptions. He couldn't have been better. So 1 year out of the 4, now 5, he's 1 for 5. That's the Mendoza line. That's 200. So that's not good. So there you can see it right there. 1 year with the Rams. If you go under team ranks, 1 year with the Rams, 3 years with the Chargers, 1 year with the 49ers, in which the coordinator got fired. Now, I can tell you this. Okay, we can stop sharing that and you can see my ugly mug again. Now, I can tell you this as a fact. Kyle Shanahan really likes Brandon Staley. I'm sorry, but he does. He thinks he's smart. He thinks he's innovative. He likes a lot of things that he does. I don't know. Honestly, I asked around all year long when I was down there constantly. I was down there a couple times a week, Wednesdays and Thursdays. I was down there most Sundays and asked everybody, what exactly does this guy do? What would you say you do around here? Nobody really could give me a great answer on what Brandon Staley did. So he's guilty by association with the 49ers. He has 3 bad years with the Chargers and 1 really great, outstanding, unbelievable year with the Rams, which featured Aaron Donald, which we can go down to coaching matters in just a second. I'm going to do that in a second. That's what I have on the board below Staley. But let me go back to Saleh for just a second, all right, because that's what you really care about here, and that's why it's top on the chalkboard today. Just because Liam Cohen has taken himself out of the running, and here, let me do something fancy right here. Bum, bum, bum. Jordan Schultz is a good NFL insider. He's not Schefter, but he's pretty good. So you can see right there, Liam Cohen will remain in Tampa Bay and no longer be in the mix for the Jags head coaching job per sources. Adam Schefter reported it first, one of the highest paid coordinators, blah, blah, blah. Big news for Baker, blah, blah, blah. So as of yesterday, the premise and writing part of that article was that, and doing the video that accompanied it, which you can find right here after the show. Please don't leave me now. I would be naked without you. Part of the reason why is because they were saying that the insiders were saying that Tampa Bay was preparing for the loss of Liam Cohen. He was going to go to Jacksonville. It's an attractive situation in that financially, just like he is in Tampa, there's no state income tax in Florida. So he gets more money to go to Jacksonville. He's going to work with Trevor Lawrence, who I don't hate. It's just Trevor Lawrence over the last year has regressed. Over the last 2 years, maybe has regressed, but certainly last year he did. But there's a quarterback in place. It's the whole reason Ben Johnson chose the Bears over the Raiders. You look at the Raiders and Tom Brady's all well and good, but then he looks at the cupboard and says, well, we have the 6th overall pick. Are we going to trade up and get one of the top quarterbacks? Who I'm not convinced in Cam Ward and especially in Shadur Sanders. I could be wrong. By the way, very exciting day in mock draft land, which I'll tell you about in just a minute. But the Raiders don't have a quarterback. They don't. Gardner Minshew or O'Connell or Aiden O'Connell or whatever they have, they don't have a quarterback. And so that's going to be a problem for especially offensive-minded coaches to think, well, who am I working with? Who are you going to go get? Now, if they have a deal in place to get a Sam Darnold, ESPN did all their wild predictions yesterday and said Darnold was going to the Raiders. We'll see. He's a West Coast guy. The Raiders are desperate for a quarterback. The Tom Brady influence, I could see that. If Minnesota decides J.J. McCarthy based on the last 2 games of the year, which they shouldn't. They should keep Darnold, but that's okay. I'm not with Minnesota. I don't have a horse in the race with the Raiders, whatever. If they had Darnold in place now, I think it would be a much more attractive job. Why does that matter for Robert Sala? Because the Jacksonville job is an attractive job except for one thing. The head coach is going in and he wants to be aligned with actually 3 people. The owner, the general manager, and a quarterback in place. Okay, you look at Jacksonville. The owner is a bit hair-triggered. He's fired a lot of guys in recent years. They haven't had a lot of success in recent years. They give up home games all the time to go over to Europe 1 or 2 times a year, so they don't really have a huge home field advantage, even though they do that whole Duval thing. Nobody's intimidated going into Jacksonville unless it's raining like crazy, and that has nothing to do with the team. So nobody's really intimidated to play there. The owner isn't the greatest. The general manager is at best lame duck because it's Trent Baalke. If you got an ACL injury, I'll pick you. That's not my best Trent Baalke, and it's not the best Trent Baalke, but you get what I'm saying. You know Trent Baalke. I don't know who he has naked pictures of. I have no idea how he keeps his job. Some of us are really, really good at managing upwards. I'm not one of those people. That's probably why I do what I do for a living. I'm not great in a suit. I'm not great in a cubicle. I'm not sitting from 8 to 5. I just can't do it. My body literally can't do it. So I'm not great at managing up. I've tried in my life. My wife is so much better at it than me. She's just great at that. Some people are, some people aren't. So Trent Baalke must be the master at managing up. In other words, kissing ass and kissing up to the owner and doing all these kind of things, because he's probably got one more chance to make this thing work. I cannot believe it. It's happened here too in San Francisco. I don't know how he does it. I know Trent Baalke. I've talked to Trent Baalke. I've interviewed Trent Baalke. Larry Krueger and I did a famous before training camp interview one time, and I think the linebackers were like Gerald Hodges and Lynch I'm trying to think of that dude's name. He was supposed to be a linebacker. He came in at like 300 pounds and admitted that his wife had gotten pregnant, so he basically put on the weight as well. I mean, it was atrocious. And with a straight face to me and Krug said, I really like my linebacker core. It was the worst linebacking core in the history of linebacking cores. And and then he hung around and he was in the broadcast booth and Chip Kelly was going to be fighting. It was just the weirdest transition ever. Anyway, he leaves the 49ers. The Jags have basically been atrocious outside of that game the playoff game in which they came back against the Chargers. Outside of that, they've had very few bright moments with Trent Baalke in charge. Made a lot of bad picks, just dumb stuff, bad free agent signings, and Jacksonville is where Jacksonville is. So my point in saying all that is not to rip Trent Baalke. It's to say that it's not a guarantee that Robert Sala, who Baalke knows, that Robert Sala would necessarily take the job, because Liam Cohen just went, you know what? This is going to be my first head coaching job. If I fall on my face with a quirky owner and a lame duck general manager, the only thing I have in place, as I just told you, is the quarterback. And that's kind of iffy too. It's not like it's a slam dunk. I like Trevor Lawrence, and I think he'll bounce back with the right person. So you want to have those things in place: a relationship with the owner, a solid general manager that you can work with, and a quarterback in place. Those things. Liam Cohen looked at the situation and said, I'd rather go back to Baker in Tampa Bay. Better situation. They're winning. He's not going to get fired, and he'll go back into the cycle next year. Could be, too, the pay. I mean, that's obviously a big thing. As I always tell you, and as a philosophy on the show, and is 100% correct and not debatable, although I guess I say all the time everything's debatable, they probably didn't come up with the right money either. So Liam Cohen's like, what's the point? Maybe I'm only going to get one chance. Jacksonville looks like a loser situation. I'm not so sure that I'm going to go there. So he goes back to Tampa, gets a bump, an extension, et cetera, and he'll go back into the cycle next year if Tampa Bay has a similar offensive season. Now, let's equate that to, and you're like, Lund, I've been sitting here the whole time for you to make a point about Robert Sala. All right, so let's look at Robert Sala in this situation, because when I first saw that Liam Cohen had turned it down, I thought, shit, it's over. He's going. Okay, hang on just a second before we jump to that conclusion, and we have to talk about Brandon Staley and everybody gets all angry, because that's not what we're going to do today. We're not going to be angry. We're going to be in a great mood, and here's why. I'm Robert Sala. I probably only have one more chance to make this right. The first time around, you can say, you know what, it was the Jets. It was Aaron Rodgers. It was, another bad owner in Woody Johnson. And ownership, you know this, in any company, good or bad, starts from the top down. So, for example, as long as Mark Davis owns the Raiders, I don't care how much Tom Brady's involved, they're not going to be successful. Shad Khan, the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, has not shown any ability through any length of time. Every once in a while, they'll be okay. A couple years ago, they went to the playoffs, all that kind of stuff. Generally speaking, they've been terrible under his ownership. They haven't had any consistency. They fire guys left and right. It's a graveyard of coaches. So if I'm Robert Sala, just because you're offered the job doesn't mean you take the job. We just saw that from Liam Cohen. So I'm Robert Sala. I can blame the Jets. Everybody is. Robert Sala has very little stench on him from that whole Jet situation. So I'm Sala. Okay, blame the Jets. First time you get a mulligan kind of, because the Jets are such a dumpster fire. But even though the Jags are in a similar situation, they don't have ownership. Not a great owner. They have a lame duck at best general manager. That's a bad situation. So Salah's got to look into it and say, do I want to be a head coach for the Jacksonville Jaguars now and use up my last chance? Because if Salah falls on his face in Jacksonville, it's really difficult to say, okay, it was the Jets, it was Jacksonville, and then get a third chance. A lot of times you just don't. So then you're relegated to being, not that this is a bad thing, but now you're just in the bin of, I'm a defensive coordinator. And there's nothing wrong with that. And he's got about 92 kids, and he can raise them absolutely, positively, a lot better than probably you or I can, at least me, on that kind of a salary. He's going to make millions to be a defensive coordinator. He'll be fine. He's not starving. He can raise all those kids. It'll be in an upscale neighborhood. It's more than upper middle class. It's probably upper class, just being a defensive coordinator. He's going to be fine. But he's got to decide right now, is this the great opportunity to be a head coach? And I can do this for a long time. And then I'm termed a head coach. So let's say I make it 5 years in Jacksonville. When's the last guy to do that? Maybe nobody. Tom Coughlin, maybe. From Urban Meyer to now Doug Peterson to, it's a graveyard of coaches, really, ever since I mean, Jack Del Rio's been there. I mean, name it, on and on and on and on and on. It's quick. It's a quick hitter. So that's why Liam Cohen said no. Now, Liam Cohen probably, if he had failed in Jacksonville, probably get another chance because everybody go, well, Jacksonville's a stupid situation. It's a dumpster fire there. You're fine. We'll give you a mulligan. Robert Sala already used up his mulligan in New York. Very rarely do teams say, okay, you screwed up in New York. Not that he did, but, you failed in New York. That's fair. You failed in Jacksonville. Let's give you a third chance. So Robert Sala's got to look at himself and say, is there a better situation a year or two from now? Should I go back to the 49ers and reestablish myself and be more picky for a better situation? Or do I take this now because I don't know that I'm going to get another shot? Even if I get fired, we get the favorite thing that everybody loves, which is getting money from a team for not working. Now, do remember, and this factors into it too. As I told you, he gets $20,000 a day from the Jets. So anything he gets from Jacksonville is offset. Now, he'll get more money from Jacksonville than he was getting from the Jets. So that money's offset. If he goes to the 49ers or any other team as a defensive coordinator, that money he gets from the Jets is offset. And he's essentially working for free because he's not going to make as much money as a defensive coordinator than he was as the head coach of the Jets. So he's essentially working for any team free. So how much is money important to him? Yeah, it's important to all of us. And I tell you all the time that it comes down to money. But if I'm Robert Sala, and I'm not, he's a good-looking man. He's in shape. He runs stairs. He pulls off the bald thing, which most people cannot do. I wait. Jacksonville is not a great situation. You have Trevor Lawrence in place, but as I've said numerous times already, the general manager, not good. The owner, hair-triggered at best. He goes through coaches. He doesn't care. He'll pay more coaches. They give away games. They're not in a really tough division. I'll say that. Tennessee stinks. The Colts aren't very good. So you got to look at that as well. How much, what kind of an opportunity do I have to win? He may have an opportunity to win. So you throw those all in the gumbo and you say, okay, do I take the job? Liam Cohen said no. Robert Sala, to me, he can do better. And he can wait it out. And he comes to the 49ers and he says, okay, let's make these pieces work. Now, the other side of it that I said, and then I'm going to go out to the comments line because you can tear my argument apart all you want, and that's fine. And it's why I still feel optimistic about Saleh. Just because the job is there doesn't mean Saleh's going to take it. You've got to really delve into this. And if I'm his agent, let's sit down. Just because you're offered the job doesn't mean you take the head coaching job. He has numerous opportunities. The thing that actually scares me more than him taking the Jacksonville job is taking the Lions job. Again, I don't know what his family situation is. I don't know if family is still there for him. Everybody assumes you want to go home, which is a ridiculous thing. Aaron Judge wanted to come home. Maybe he likes the distance. Like my parents, I've never lived close to them as an adult, and I'm fine with it. I don't want my mom popping by. I don't want her living down the street. Some people, it's like I went to college an hour and a half away from my parents. It was perfect. If I really needed to do laundry and it was terrible and I was completely broke, I told you I had the old Subaru after I wrecked the GMC or the Chevy Blazer. So I had this stupid white Subaru hatchback, and when it was really bad, I'm totally out of money. I've been drinking too much. I'd dump a bunch of laundry in that stuff and everything, and I'd go home and I'd do laundry and I'd get cleaning supplies and I'd get some food and probably steal some booze, and then I'd drive an hour and a half away. But I knew that they were never just going to pop in on me. So this whole thing of home and this illusion, I think, of home, where you are born and where you really call home are two different things. So I don't know what Robert Sala thinks of that, but that is a factor one way or the other, and only he or him or people close to him know that. He's from Dearborn, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit. They probably are in a better position to get him a head coaching job with success as far as their young players are concerned. I mean, it's Hutchinson. Those linebackers are pretty good. Jack Campbell's young. Brian Branch is really good. They drafted a couple of really young corners. Will they be a better defense than the 49ers? I don't know. But they seem to be ascending, and the 49ers might be descending. And that's where Salah's got to look at the situation and say, what's my best path to getting a great head coaching opportunity? Jacksonville's not the best he can do. So to me, the bigger threat is, would he go to Detroit? Would he go to the Raiders if Pete Carroll got that job, if he threw a bunch of money at him? Would that be something he would want to do? I don't think so, just because Max Crosby's there, Christian Wilkins is there, a couple other smaller pieces, but not great. That's not a great defense, and I don't think – and the Raiders are still a dumpster fire, Brady or not. So I don't think that that's his best path to a next job. The Cowboys have spent money on defensive coordinators. They go low profile head coach. And then they've hired guys like Dan Quinn and Mike Zimmer. So they have on that side of the ball said, let's just get a guy who can control the defense. Kellen Moore, or Brian Schottenheimer, you control the offense. We'll get a defensive guy. Everybody wants a Salah on defense so that they don't have to concentrate so much on offense. So to me, more than even the head coaching situation today, which he's going to talk to Jacksonville on Friday, that's a bad situation. Now, maybe Robert Sala just wants to jump into it right now, but that's his last chance. We bypass New York because they're a joke and Aaron Rodgers. We want to bypass Jacksonville, which if it was your first opportunity, they would. But it's a lot of times in the coaching profession, it's 2 strikes and you're out. That's just what happens. A lot of times you just don't get a third strike. So is Saleh going to use up his second strike in Jacksonville? I find that hard to believe. Could be wrong. They could pay him a ton of money and he could just say, to heck with it. This is my chance. I don't love the opportunity in Jacksonville. And he knows the same thing. So do his agent. Trent Baalke's lame duck. Owner has no problem firing guys. So my bigger threat than him taking the head coaching job in Jacksonville is taking another defensive coordinator opportunity, especially in Detroit. So give me your thoughts on that. That's my rationale on Robert Sala this morning. A lot of people this morning like, oh my God, Liam Cohen took himself out. And that was the guy, and you read the same thing I did yesterday. That was the guy that looked like was going to Jacksonville. But he's decided, I'm not going to use up one of my chances on Jacksonville. Jacksonville to me is one of the worst opportunities in the NFL. And I think that Robert Sala is better than that. All right, what do you think? Let's start. I'll start at the bottom here. If the rumors, let's see, let me pop these out. Steve says, if the rumors are true and Aaron Rodgers comes to San Francisco, show me the rumors. Aaron Rodgers isn't coming here. I don't know what rumors it is, but I can tell you right now, he's not coming here. Hello, John. Makes sense on the Saleh situation. Yeah, I make sense. I just don't know if what I'm saying is crazy. Liam has more faith than Baker. Yeah, there's no question about it. Let me address, thank you very much. I'm going to get to all of these. I promise. A lot of great stuff coming through on the text line. I just wanted to explain all those things. It took me like 20 minutes to do that, but that's my thought. As far as a rumor on Aaron Rodgers coming here, think about whatever insider said that. I know the 49ers better than a lot of these national insiders do. I don't know them like Matt Mayoko or Matt Barrows or anything, but I know a lot. I've been in that building a lot. I've talked to a lot of people. And as far as Aaron Rodgers is concerned, I can tell you from a incredibly good source, no effing way. No effing way. And I'll tell you why. Remember how I'm always talking about, how could you forget? I talk about it basically every day. How Jerry Jones doesn't like to have anybody challenge his throne, more so challenge his camera time. He wants it to be about him, and anybody who's going to turn that spotlight even a little bit away from him, he doesn't have any time for, especially near the end of his life. As far as Aaron Rodgers is concerned, Kyle Shanahan, good guy. Really like Kyle Shanahan. Massive ego. Just really big ego. It's just before he got hired with the 49ers, and Tolbert and I did the first interview he ever did. When he got named head coach and he had that suit on, I've showed you the picture before, jet black hair, and now he's aging worse than the president. He still looks a lot better than I do, but I'm just saying that's a fact. We asked him off the air, like, there is this thing about your arrogance and all this kind of, what's that all about? And he just kind of comes across that way. But think of Kyle Shanahan kind of like Jerry Jones in the spotlight. It's his offense. He wants a quarterback to run said offense. And if a egotistical quarterback who says, I'll do it my way comes, that's not Kyle Shanahan. Think about the quarterbacks that Kyle Shanahan has had in his career. A Matt Schaub, a Matt Ryan. Even though Matt Ryan's probably a Hall of Fame quarterback, he's not that me kind of a thing. He's had opportunities to bring in Tom Brady, probably should have. Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously. Now with Brock Purdy, just go through the history of a Kyle Shanahan quarterback. None of them have been the high profile type of a guy. Even Kirk Cousins, RG3 didn't exactly get along great with. What you know about RG3, right? He's kind of an arrogant kind of a guy. I like him on TV. I have no issue with him, but he's just, it's about me kind of a guy. Brady, I like Brady, but look, Brady's not going to come in and say, yes, sir. He's going to say, look, this is how I run things. It's Tom Brady's show, right? It wasn't Kirk Cousins' show. It wasn't Matt Schaub's show. It wasn't Matt Ryan's show. It's not Brock Purdy's show. It's Kyle Shanahan's show. And he's never had a quarterback even though Matt Ryan's really, really good, even if you watch Matt Ryan on TV now, which I think he's very, very, very underrated, he's a team guy. He's, okay, I'll run it your way, Kyle. There was never really issues with that. In fact, Jimmy Garoppolo at times thought he was better than what he was, and he did challenge Kyle. And even though some of this stuff didn't get out, they did knock heads on numerous occasions. So Kyle's basically says, it's my offense. If you run it like I tell you to, then things are going to go great. He has a tremendous amount of confidence, does Kyle, in what he's calling, what the scheme is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You have to execute what I say, and his success or failure on a play is not necessarily based on whether it scored a touchdown. It's whether you maximized the way the play was designed. Did you get the yards where you were supposed to get? If you break a tackle, you score a touchdown. That's all well and good. But when Kyle Shanahan goes back and watches film, Kyle does it based on how successful the play was, based on what he drew up. And if enough times you go the other way on this, and this is what was so weird about Trey Lance, he doesn't really like when you go off script. Here's the play. It's well designed. It's well thought out. If you just execute said play, it's going to be successful. And if you don't, then we're going to have a problem. So that's Kyle Shanahan. So let's put Aaron Rodgers in that seat. You think that Aaron Rodgers is going to go, yes, sir. Whatever you say, sir. Yep, we'll do it your way, sir. That's not Aaron Rodgers. That's two big egos going. So Aaron Rodgers coming to the 49ers? Absolutely not. Will not happen. And if, you know what, if I'm wrong, I'll jump on, and the first thing I'll say to Steve and everybody else is, I'm an idiot. I'm stupid. He was that desperate. I don't see it, especially with Brock's going to get a big fat contract, whether you like it or not. So he's not going to bring in, and here's the other part of, and you all know this, I'm just reminding you. The other part of dynamics amongst a football team is, who do you have behind Brock Purdy? Well, you're not going to have Aaron Rodgers. First of all, Aaron Rodgers' ego would not allow him to back up Brock Purdy, which would be a major problem, because he's going to be pushing for the starting job. And anytime Brock Purdy were to make a mistake, what do you think would happen? Where would the cameras go? Right to Aaron Rodgers, standing on the sidelines, whispering to somebody. And we saw enough of him in New York in terms of splitting up the team. I mean, he's always like, who, me? Me? I didn't, me? That's Aaron Rodgers. So he's not going anywhere where he's going to be challenged for a job. He's not going to be a backup quarterback. He'd retire first. If the Raiders don't get Sam Darnold, which a lot of people are speculating they will, who knows what Minnesota's going to do there. I wouldn't be surprised to see Aaron Rodgers in Raiders gear with Tom Brady. I mean, can you imagine Aaron Rodgers as a Raider? He already looks like Ken Stabler. I mean, that's how he's aging. Probably even looks a little better than Snake, but I'm just saying that he's not aging like Tom Brady. He's aging like, maybe not George Blanda, but he's aging like Stabler. That's what he looks like. So, yeah, I could see Aaron Rodgers with the Raiders for a last shot at it, because I don't know anybody else that's going to give him a chance. I mean, there are teams that need quarterbacks. New Orleans needs a quarterback. The Jets now do. He's not going back to the Jets. I mean, you can go on down. Giants are sitting at 3. What if the quarterbacks go 1-2 and the Giants are sitting there? Would Rodgers go across town to the Giants? Maybe. I mean, he's better than, hey, it's Tommy DeVito. He's better than Tommy DeVito. But Aaron Rodgers is not going to be a 49er, just on what I just said. So, all right. So Saleh chances we got to. Staley, I gave you that as well. Is everybody pissed about just thinking about Staley as just what I said? And I have that. I can pop that back up here in just a second. But let me see here. What's everybody talking about? I'll go there. Let me just check real quick. Tom Brady doesn't age. Yeah, that's unbelievable to me. Let's see. I'd hire Eberflus. That's Matt Eberflus, who was in Chicago, over Staley. To be completely honest with you, when a guy, and this is part of the problem, is when a guy fails as a head coach, we all think he's a bad coordinator. I don't know how good Eberflus is. Again, you have to look at connections. That's what happens in the NFL. Does Kyle Shanahan know Matt Eberflus in any way, shape, or form? Do they have a connection? Do they have similarities? Do they run the same offense? The same defense. Because one thing Kyle gave us in that year-end press conference is that he likes running the Seattle style defense. That's Robert Sala. He tried to go outside of that a couple of years ago when he hired Steve Wilkes and said, okay, we can try something else. I'm flexible. Let me try this. And then he was completely not flexible. Get out of the booth. I need you down here. This is what we want the defense to do. Look, I wouldn't mind someone with a new defensive philosophy coming in here, but let me go down real quick to the coaching matters, which is 0.3 on the chalkboard today. It comes down to talent. You know that. I know that. It comes down to talent. It doesn't come down to, boy, this coordinator is awesome. I mean, look, if you go, let's use, just because we want to use this, you go to the Philadelphia situation, right? And we know what they did. They changed to a great defensive coordinator, and all of a sudden they're great. But Jalen Carter was already there, and a bunch of those young defensive linemen were already there, basically all from Georgia. And N'Kobe Dean was there, who's now hurt. And they drafted a great corner in Quinyon Mitchell, actually in Cooper DeJean as well. So their biggest weakness, they went after. DeJean can play safety and corner. So they, as I've said over the last number of days, weeks, and the 6 or 8 weeks we've been on, is that it comes down to players. So Philadelphia brings in a new defensive coordinator, a guy that we are very familiar with in Vic Fangio. We know he's a great defensive coordinator. But Vic Fangio was also in Miami with that group, and he wasn't so good. How come? Because he didn't have the players. So the players are in Philadelphia. The year before, the players were in Philadelphia, but all of a sudden, Jalen Carter is unblockable. He was good as a rookie, but now he's unblockable. They've got a great rotation on their defensive line. They've drafted really well. They've replaced linebackers. Dean has been the best. They've got good safeties. They bring back one of our favorites, of course, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and Reed Blankenship is okay, but then they come out. Their weaknesses were corners like James Bradbury. Bradbury is long gone. And all of a sudden they have Darius Slay. He's solid, but then they grab two really good defensive backs, Quinyon Mitchell being one and Cooper DeJean being the other, for some of their weakness in their secondary, and all of a sudden Philly's good again. Well, is it because they have good personnel? Yeah, it's because they have good personnel, but they also have a really good defensive coordinator. So with the combination, it's great. But with Robert Sala, if this defense isn't good, some of it's Sala, because if you look at Sala's numbers too, and I popped up Staley's and everyone went, just that 1 year, that's the outlier, and it might be. But Robert Sala's defenses weren't great every single year. They were good when they went to the Super Bowl. He parlayed that into the job with the Jets, but they weren't good every single year. So it really is going to come down to, for the 49ers, as far as defensively is, get Staley in there. But if you don't get Nick Bosa some help along the defensive line, if it's just Fred Warner and not Dre Greenlaw, and it's D Winters and Greenlaw leaves, even though I think you should do a make good 1 year after only playing one half this year. And if a young secondary isn't better, okay, you're going to lose Javarius Ward. We know that. Dima Lenore I have no issue with, but now Renardo Green's going to be one of the corners. You have really young safeties. I like Mustafa. He's nice. Jared Brown made a lot of mistakes this past year. Young player. You're going to have a really young secondary. How does that work out? I don't know. So Robert Sala is only as good as what his players are. He can give them a push, but as I said on the chalkboard there, how much does coaching matter? We've talked about this as far as, Phil Jackson never took a bad job. He never took a job that didn't have Jordan or Shaq and Kobe. Damn, he's a good coach. Yeah, he's not stupid. That's why. So when you get to a certain level, you're not going to take a job. You're not going to take a Jaguars job. You're not going to if Kyle Shanahan was fired tomorrow and the Jacksonville Jaguars called him, he's like, hell no, I'm not taking your job. He's going to wait. He's going to wait for a great situation. Good coaches can do that. Kyle's not getting fired, but I'm simply saying that a good coach who is out there and teams want him and owners want him, they're not going to take a bad job. These guys at the beginning have to take these jobs, and just to spin this all the way back to Robert Sala. I like Robert Sala, but what these bad teams need are culture changers. Dan Campbell changed the culture in Detroit. I don't know if he's coaching anybody up. He was basically his entire career a second or a third string tight end. He was a blocking guy, caught a few balls, but he was a blocking guy. So he just went in there and changed culture. It's not like he's, making the offense revolutionary. That was Ben Johnson's job. And Detroit's going to find out by losing both their coordinators, because it does look like Aaron Glenn's going to the Jets for some dumb reason. That's another place I just wouldn't go to. It's like, no, I think I can do better. So anyway, that's the Saleh situation in a long roundabout way, and I'd love to get your thoughts on it. I am less in fear of him taking the Jacksonville job and more in fear of him taking a defensive coordinator job, specifically Detroit, which is home and probably has more upside. Because if you win, you're going to get a job. If I'm Robert Sala, I just watched Ben Johnson of the Lions get the Bears job, no matter how good you think that one is, and the defensive coordinator, Aaron Glenn, is the front runner for the Jets job. So here I am going, where can I go? Now, for a long time, the Niners were like, they're taking Robert Sala. They're taking DeMeco Ryans. they were the same thing, and they still might be someday, but it's going to be a competition with the Lions because his ultimate goal is to be back into a good situation or a year or two. And I'm not sure that Jacksonville is that. In fact, I'm sure it's not. And if I'm his agent, I'm saying, no. You're right. Phil Jackson ended his career coaching New York. That was just too much money. They just threw so much money and power at him. He was the director of basketball operations or whatever, and there was so much money in it. He's just like, I can't turn this down. So you're right. You're right. I was going to say you're technically right. You are right. So that's that. All right. So there's the big Staley stuff. If you want to read, or the Staley stuff, that is the Saleh stuff. If you want to read more, just go to my website, JohnLundUnleashed.com. It's a little bit different because of the Liam Cohen situation, and I will update that a little bit later. But it doesn't change my opinion, even though everyone freaked out this morning. Before I even came on the air at 8 o'clock, people were like, oh, my God, Liam Cohen said, no, Saleh's gone. I don't think that. But let me check let me check. Is anybody looking? I knew that Mike Tirico was going to be the voice of NBC NBA. That's not a breaking news deal. Let's see. Exactly. See, I'm looking on X right now. Saleh is also thinking, why the hell would I want to work for Balky? That's it. I mean, why would I want to do that? I wouldn't. I just don't think he's going to do it. Now, I could be wrong. They could offer him just boatloads of money, but I just don't think that's going to be the case. Real quick, just because I did this, let me do this really, really quickly, just because we just joined the show. Maybe you missed it. Yeah, Liam Cohen is staying, but here's the, let me throw the Staley stuff out at you so you can see it a little bit better. So if it comes down to Staley as the defensive coordinator, look at team ranks, look at 2020 LARDC, LA Rams defensive coordinator. So go over to defense. You see yards, the number 1, points, the number 1, and then you go to passing defense, which is the last column before I cut it off there. 1 touchdown allowed and 12 interceptions. Ridiculously good. He parlays that the next year into the Chargers gig. Stay with me. 23rd in yards, 29th in points, first year, second year, 20th in yards, 21st in points, and his last year, 28th in yards, 24th in points. So that 1 year he parlays into the head coaching job of the Chargers. And I'm not upset because he wasn't a good head coach. He was 24-24 with the Chargers, went for it on 4th down way too many times. And this is from a guy who likes to be aggressive offensively. I love it. So I want Kyle to get a little bit more of that, but not to the Brandon Staley level. So if you just base it on what he's done other than that 1 year in 2020 with the Rams, and let's put in this year with the 49ers, in which he was somehow, some way, shape, or form associated with the defense that got their coordinator fired, and he was an overseer in some way of that. So 21, 22, 23, not a good defense. 24, not a good defense. So he's 1 for 5 in being some sort of a defensive coordinator type, because he did run the defense with the Chargers. So if you don't like Staley as the option, as the backup option, I understand why, because rather than screaming and bitching and moaning, I thought to myself, well, let me just go look at what he did. He had 1 great year with the Rams. And remember how I'm always talking about players? Aaron Donald was pretty good, if I remember right. I'm being sarcastic if you didn't catch it. But so, yeah, I don't love it because his track record is not great. Now, it doesn't matter because it's not a democracy, as we often – I know this for a fact. Kyle Shanahan likes, respects, thinks highly of Brandon Staley. He does. He thinks he's very smart, thinks he knows what he's doing, and so maybe that's the direction he goes. I would have a real problem with somebody who presided over that defense coming back. Now, were there injuries? Yeah, Nick was gone for a lot of the year. Fred Warner was on a basically cracked ankle. Dre Greenlaw played a half of 1 game. Mooney Man Ward, who won't be back, had off-field issues that we couldn't even imagine, and so much so that his wife couldn't come back. He had PTSD. She couldn't come back into the state of California. So, I mean, I don't know how you could play under those circumstances, and he didn't have a very good year. So, yeah, there's a lot of excuses or explanations, whatever you want to make it, for the way that the defense played. But logic in my head tells me that that's not the right guy. So what other defensive coordinator? Somebody brought up Eberflus. It looks like Dennis Allen, who I don't like. He's a flatliner. It looks like he's going to Chicago. So other than that, I don't know what the names are for defensive coordinator for the 49ers. You could go, I mean, he's not going to do this. Pete Carroll's from Northern California, and if he doesn't get the Raiders job, he's one of the kind of forefathers of the defense that Kyle Shanahan likes to run, but I don't think Pete Carroll is going to come back to be a defensive coordinator at 73. I just don't see it. So other than that, I don't know. I don't know what direction they would go. I would like some outside blood for the 49ers on defense, and while they could keep the same concepts defensively, I would like to see some new things from this team because I don't think they have the talent, and I don't think they have, even though they have a lot of draft capital, to rely on young guys is not the greatest path. You've got to do a combination of things, and I don't know if the 49ers will have enough money to do both of those things and fix the offensive line. Let me give you one guy. In fact, today's a very good day. We can transition from Robert Sala because today's a very good day. It's mock draft day. Mel Kiper's first mock draft has come out, but this guy decided that he's going to play, and the 49ers tried to get him at one point. I don't know what he would cost at this certain age, but this is a guy I would pursue. Khalil Mack said he was going to think about it. He says he is going to play the 2025 season, and he's a free agent. He would be great opposite Nick Bosa, and he is tremendous against the run. He is better against the run than he is against the pass. And what that would do is, I think Khalil Mack playing on first and second down and then bringing in and then moving him like a turbo package to the inside because he's extremely strong against a guard, and then putting Leonard Floyd on the outside, that would be a great turbo pass rush. Mack inside, Floyd outside, Bosa outside, and then you got to figure somebody out on the inside as well. But Khalil Mack would be a guy, even at his age, that I would absolutely love. And I know Raiders fans remember him. He just throws dudes around, and I don't care how old he is. You don't have, if you have Leonard Floyd, you don't have to play him as much. But base downs to have Khalil Mack, who's a tremendous run defender, no matter how old he is, opposite Nick Bosa. And, everybody throws anyway, but he can set an edge better than anybody that the 49ers have had in a while. And that includes Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa is great against the run, but to have him against the run and then possibly move him inside and then have Leonard Floyd outside of him, yes, please. And he's a free agent. And I don't think he's going to, I don't think he's going to cost you a ton of money. And they did try to go after him one time, but the Raiders wouldn't trade with the 49ers, which, by the way, if you ever think that the Mark Davis-owned Raiders are going to trade with the 49ers ever, if you ever see a rumor like that, it's not happening. It's not happening. So anyway, give me your thoughts on Khalil Mack. I would love that signing. And then, like I said, today is a glorious, glorious, glorious day, I tell you, because it is Mel Kiper Jr.'s first mock draft. Do you want to see who he thinks the 49ers are going to pick? Huh? You can't wait. There you go. I would be on board with this pick. What it means, though, is because it's Kiper 1.0 that Kelvin Banks will never be a 49er just because he's never right on these things. But I would love to see Kelvin Banks Jr., the tackle out of Texas, be the pick. As he says in the second paragraph, the 49ers still have Trent Williams locking down the left side for 2 more seasons. I don't know about that. 37 at the end of next season, start planning for the future, blah, blah, blah. When the Niners have missed Mike McGlinchey, signed with Denver, they were never going to re-sign him, by the way, Mel. Anyway, that would be the guy. That would, to me, if they could get a guy and he would drop to 11. Now, there's a couple other guys, and we're going to do all sorts of mock stuff. I hope you like mock. I hope you like talking draft because I love it. I become a complete freak and fool over it. And Krug is the same way. So Krug and I are going to do a bunch of stuff, but that is the first Mel Kiper mock draft pick for the 49ers, Kelvin Banks Jr. from Texas. So what do you think of that? Between me talking about Mac and Kelvin Banks, that would go a long way. Those two things would go a long way in shoring up the offensive and defensive line, which you and I have talked about ad nauseum. Have we not? Yes, we have. We've talked about it. So Khalil Mack opposite Bosa on base downs, move inside for passing downs, and Kelvin Banks Jr., who could take over at right tackle and then eventually be the left tackle that takes over for Trent Williams, I would be down because I've told you a million times already this offseason, offensive and defensive line, offensive and defensive line, offensive and defensive line. And you're like, we get it, dude. We get it. Let's see. Yes, I do know. Thank you, Daryl. Green Bay is going to host the 2025 NFL draft. Do you guys like that? Let's see. Yeah, I hit the wrong one. This one. Yeah. Hey, Daryl, good to see you. 2025 NFL draft. I've covered a couple in New York, and I like it. Like when it went to Nashville and all the because Nashville is the bachelorette capital of the world, and all these bachelorettes were like having their bachelorette parties. And like, who are these Neanderthals? What is going on? And there was like 2 million people in downtown Nashville, which Nashville is awesome. If you want to go on a tangent on off topics, we can go on a tangent about Nashville. awesome, just awesome. And so it's in Nashville. It was cool. Detroit, I wouldn't have done that. But hey, they're trying to be nice to these cities that they're not going to give Super Bowls to. I know Detroit had one because I was there, but they're not going to do that again. So in lieu of a Super Bowl, like some people have said that they want to have a Super Bowl in Green Bay. Would you be down with that? Because I wouldn't. I told you over the weekend, I wasn't really down with the snow game in Philadelphia. I didn't love the snow game in Buffalo. I mean, they were decent enough games. It's just, would you have liked to have seen what the Rams could have done in decent weather? And I know you hate the Rams, but I hate Philly more. So, I'm not a big snow guy. And I told you the story about when I was at Super Bowl 48, and that Sunday everything stayed clear. Seattle rocks Denver 43-8. Then the next day we were flying out on that Monday and just complete. Like, we're just sitting, those delays where you're just sitting in the airport going, this sucks. And the Monday after the Super Bowl is a dumpster fire anyway, even if it's in New York, New Jersey, wherever, when they're used to stuff like that. It was brutal. And all these people were saying, oh, it would have been so cool if we'd had a snow Super Bowl. And I was like, nah. So the reason they're having the draft in Green Bay is because they're not going to have a Super Bowl there, even though some people have talked about it. So I don't know how many people, because there's, Green Bay is obviously the smallest market in the NFL. And you look at that whole situation. I don't know how they're going to fit 2 million people, in and around Lambeau Field, but they're going to do it. So I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it's going to be actually pretty cool. Believe me, Vernon says Nashville and Vegas. Yeah, Vegas was really cool. I like it. It doesn't have to be in New York every single year, even though that was the perfect place for it in Manhattan. I thought that was really cool. All the guys are going to come out. Like if I'm a draft pick, am I going to go to Green Bay? And people talk about the way that the weather is. Like I said, I've told you this many times. I was in Detroit for, draft headquarters and that kind of stuff. And at least 2 of the years that I was there, I was driving home and it was, obviously the end of April when the draft is, and it's snowing. I'm just driving down the road going, just throwing out a number because it was around this date. Like I would yell in my car, it's April 27th and it's snowing. It was just, I just had to get it out when I was driving because, again, I'm originally from LA and I'm like, it's April 27th. I just got done with the draft show and it's snowing. What in the hell is going on? So I don't know what the weather's going to be like in Green Bay. It could snow. It could be sunny. Like at that time of the year in the Midwest, run the gamut. It's probably going to be cold to some extent, which is why everybody goes absolutely bananas. We out here, we don't understand. Like right now, what's today? January 22nd? January 22nd, we're like, oh, I wonder if we can brave this for another 6 or 8 weeks. Like we're going to be prepping the pool here in, I don't know, a matter of probably 8 to 10 weeks, something like that. Meanwhile, when I lived back in Detroit, we were still fishing on a frozen lake in April. I mean, it was just like, it just doesn't end. And it starts in like October. I've told you that. I take, young George out trick-or-treating or something. And on some days some years it would snow. A couple years it just pounded snow. And people back there, they don't care. They just put whiskey in a flask and you just walk around with, they don't even put like a hat on or anything. Like it's not even that cold, man. Not even at all. So I don't know what it's going to be like there. All right. We've talked a lot about I'm going to play a 49ers clip for you that you're really going to like today in history for the 49ers, but do we need to go over Saleh anymore? Because I got a lot. The reason I was a few short minutes late today is because so many things were happening. Like I had to change the chalkboard a couple of times. I had to add a couple of pieces of video today, all these different things that I was adding. So we have a ton to do we still have a lot of football. Middlekauff, John Middlekauff is going to join us from 3 and Out, Middlekauff, Haberman, Middlekauff, all that kind of stuff. My good friend, John Middlekauff, he's in Scottsdale now, doing a ton of golfing, hanging out. He's got the life. Beautiful girl that I think they're engaged, if not married. Definitely outkicked his coverage on that. He's going to join us at 10 o'clock. So what do we got? We got 9:12. So we did a lot of football. So we're going to circle back to football. But before I leave football for just a quick moment and we start talking about the Hall of Fame, as in the Hall of Very Good, but not the Hall of Fame anymore. And I guess I have to be the bad guy, which I don't really want to be the bad guy. But I'm going to play one Niners thing that's really going to make your day today. You may know what it is. But let me just double check that everybody's getting taken care of here on the chat line. Are you talking about Phoenix as far as a Super Bowl is concerned? I've covered a couple of Super Bowls in Phoenix on Radio Row. It's spread out just like the rest of them. It's not great because, what was it, 2 years ago? Because it went Phoenix, Vegas, and then this year it's going to be New Orleans, obviously. Phoenix is just okay. The weather is amazing. I stayed in a hotel right across from Radio Row. So literally it took me like 2 minutes to walk over there. Really, really cool. But same thing, where it is in downtown Phoenix, where the convention center is, and then you got to go all the way out to Glendale where the game is. And then a lot of the media stuff is all over the place. It's like a lot of these places is just spread out all over the place. Whereas New Orleans is just incredible. Everything is right there. Vegas, everything is right there. It's awesome. So Phoenix is just okay. They're going to have more Super Bowls there. All right. You don't care about that. January 22nd, 1989. Does that ring a bell? January 22nd, 1989. So today is January 22nd, 2025. So 36 years ago today. Do you know what happened? Do you know? Well, let me play it for you. It is the let me just, I was going to tell you what it is, but rather than do that, let me let Harris Barton and others tell you what happened that day. And you probably already know. Again, January 22nd, 1989. Here you go. This day in history, 36 years ago with the 49ers.
Beating this team. We're behind by 3. We need to score a touchdown. This is crap. What are we doing? It was the tensest time that you could ever have as a football player. You know, this is a Super Bowl, and you're down. And Joe looks at me, and he goes, hey, H. And I go, what? And he goes, hey, check it out. And I go, what? And he goes, look down there in the other end zone. And I go, okay. He goes, you see him? I go, no. He goes, there's John Candy down there in the end zone. And sure enough, the whole huddle turns around and looks down there, and there's John Candy eating popcorn at the other end of the stadium. And we're like, yeah, that is John Candy. Look at that. And then the official blows a whistle, and the play starts.
The 49ers have a long way to go. Montana back to throw on first down. Throws over the middle. Completes it to Craig. Craig is to the 16.
That was Joe Montana at his best.
Montana again is back to throw. A little dunk over the middle. Caught by John Frank, and that'll be a first down.
Montana with a first down. 2 receivers near side. Joe back to throw. Steps up. Throws. Out here for Rice. He has it at midfield. Goes out of bounds. 2 wide receivers near side. Montana to throw. Completes it up the middle to Craig.
At one point, Joe looked at me and gave me a timeout signal, and I waved him off. I didn't want to take a timeout there. And he did it again. I waved him off. I had no idea he was hyperventilating.
Montana trying to drive him the length of the field here with the game in the balance. 16-13, the Bengals lead. Montana back to throw. Throws over the middle. A fight gets for right into the 20. He's down to the 19 for a first down.
We were all extensions of each other.
Everyone had different roles they had to play.
52 seconds remaining.
And that whole drive, we were just an extension to each other.
He completes it to Craig. He's down to the 10. 49ers will have to take a timeout here.
With 39 seconds remaining, Walsh called 20 halfback curl X up. It was the last play he would call as coach of the 49ers.
At the 10-yard line, 39 seconds remaining. Back to throw Montana. Steps up, throws.
That's so awesome, man. Let me get that off the screen. So January 22nd, which is today, in 1989, the most fun for me that whole time, and I honestly have goosebumps. I've watched that 1,000 times. I have goosebumps. Is watching the chat line, and I'm going to move over to Instagram here and X in just a second. But it was so awesome. It was so incredible. And when people say, who's the greatest, right? And they look at numbers. What you just saw, what we all just saw, or if you're listening on the podcast later, what you just heard is what matters. I don't care what you did on a random Monday night in September. I don't care what you did on a Sunday afternoon in week 10. I don't care. It matters, and the stats build up and all those kind of things. But Joe Montana walking into the huddle, and that was Harris Barton, the right tackle of the 49ers at the time, and walking into the huddle and knowing innately what was needed. He could see the tension as he walked onto the field. He knew that there would be tension in the huddle. He knew which guys were going to be tense. You know, like Steve Young told us all the time, like Brent Jones had to calm him down. But Joe knew, hence the name Joe Cool. Joe knew that he walked into that huddle and he knew they were going to win the football game, but he just had to calm everybody down. So he's looking around and he sees John Candy and he knows exactly what he's going to do. He knew that from the moment he stepped onto the field, past the sideline, had just got done talking to Bill Walsh and said, I got to loosen these guys up, and thought to himself, there's John Candy. So then he walks into the huddle, looks at Harris Barton, who's got this look of death on his face, and he's white as a ghost. And he says, hey, that's John Candy down there. Everybody loosens up, and then Joe goes at it. And it's so incredible because you're looking at John Taylor, and I got a great John Taylor story for you in a second. John Taylor's there. Jerry's there. Brent is there. Roger is there. And by the way, we're going to get into a Hall of Fame baseball conversation in just a second. And to not have Roger Craig into the Hall of Fame is a ridiculous injustice. And so much so that we used to have Roger Craig all the time on the radio. He's the nicest, most positive guy. He did that marathon, the Rockin' Roger Craig Rockin' whatever it was marathon down in San Jose. He still lives in the Bay Area. He's one of the nicest guys you could ever meet in person. He used to come down all the time and be an honorary captain. He would grace us with his presence when we were doing pre and post game. He'd come in. He had the best handshake. He looked like he hadn't aged a day. Just an incredible man. Just an incredible man. And the fact, and if anybody ever tells you that getting into the Hall of Fame doesn't matter, I'm going to play a Billy Wagner thing for you in just a second. He was bawling like a baby. Don't believe him for 1 second. They've been playing this game since they were a child. They've worked their ass off. They've worked and they've worked and they've worked. And nobody wants to say that a individual accolade means anything. It's team. But after that, it's like, look, Roger Craig's a Hall of Famer. There's just no question about it. The first 1,000 guy, high knees, all the different things he did for the 49ers went under the radar. And for some reason, the dumbasses that have the power in this whole thing, media-wise, think to themselves, that's enough 49ers. That's enough 49ers to get in the Hall of Fame. We put that guy in and that guy in and that guy in and that guy in. No, you're not getting into the club. And it's like, did you ever watch? And these are supposed to be the people that actually watched and know. I'm sorry to go on a rant about this because Roger Craig has changed. My point is Roger Craig has changed so much. He won't come on the radio anymore. He wouldn't. He's kind of a, I don't want to call him a recluse, but he doesn't come out to the games anymore. He's not the honorary. He just doesn't want to be around it because it hurts him so much and upsets him so much. And he is the ultimate guy of positivity, but he doesn't want to come around the game anymore because he hasn't been put in the Hall of Fame. And at some point he will be, but hopefully it's not like Ken Stabler. Like Ken Stabler's family enjoyed it. Snake's family enjoyed it. He didn't get a chance to. What's the point? Which will bring me into the Hall of Fame in just a second, because I think that the way that baseball does it, pro football does, I think it's just the dumbest thing ever. But we'll get into that in just a second. I don't mean to rant and rave, but that's what, I'm sitting there. We watch this whole great thing. It's this day and 36 years ago that Joe Montana did that. And then I rant on Roger Craig. So I apologize. I'm going to go back to that for just a second. The other part that, besides watching everyone's reaction on the chat line, which was really, really cool, the other part that got me was when the voice of God says, it would be the last play call that Bill Walsh would ever make. And it's like, wow. Right after that, Bill Walsh said, I'm done. Like, I'm done with it. And it's too bad. And Bill Walsh had said later in his career that he probably shouldn't have retired at that point. George Seifert takes over. They win another one in 94. But, man, it was just the last play call that Bill Walsh ever made was that touchdown throw from Montana to John Taylor. And the ball was perfectly threaded between two Bengals defenders. And then I watched somebody say the Bengals are to the 49ers what the 49ers now are to the Chiefs. And it's sad, but it's true. When they went into those games, you just felt like nobody's beating them. I mean, it's just nobody's beating them. And that's kind of how you feel about the Chiefs now, is because they have 15. The Niners had 16. And you thought to yourself, they're just not going to lose. So when you have the conversation, back to originally what I was saying before I went on the Craig rant, when you have the conversation about who's the greatest in any sport, and you can have your greatest and I can have my greatest and Mount Rushmores and all this kind of stuff that everybody loves and lists and all that stuff, which if you've listened to or watched the show with any regularity, I don't care. I don't care what anybody's list is. I don't care about anybody's Mount Rushmore. I don't care about anybody's greatest. Because what's so difficult about it? Not only is it really difficult because numbers aren't the only thing, as we just found out in that clip. It's about when you do it, not how much you do. Michael Jordan could go 5 for 31 in a game, but if that fifth hit or if that fifth shot going in was a game winner, then that's all that mattered. It's when you hit shots. It's when you have you're a slow breather at that moment. Some people vomit on their shoes. Some people just step up. Joe Montana went into that huddle knowing they were going to win the game. And all he did was think, how can I calm everybody down? Like a lot of people think, well, that's not saying that John Candy's there. That doesn't do anything. Hell, it didn't. Harris Barton went, okay, look how relaxed this guy is. We're all relaxed. And then he just went boom, 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 like a surgeon right down the field. That's what matters in determining the greatest. Now, to me, is Brady in that same realm? He is. You can look at it all you want, and I would probably put Brady ahead of Joe, and I know that's sacrilege to say here, but Brady did the same things. That's the difference. I know, Brock Purdy or whomever, whatever quarterback, you can go up and down the field, 80 yards here, 80 yards here, 70 yards there, 90 yards there, whatever. When you do it is when it matters. And so that's what determines and separates the good from the great from the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame from the first ballot is when you do it in those situations. So it was incredible. 36 years ago today. So hopefully that made you feel better about things. And again, like I said, you can call Joe one or, to me, it really doesn't matter when you get to that point. But some of these talking head shows, they scream and they yell and they hit the, he's on the Mount Rushmore. He's not. He's the greatest. No, he's the greatest. It's like, you can't really clump it. Today's passing rules versus those passing rules, different generations, different rules, all those kind of things. Like three-pointers. I saw the other day, Draymond Green has hit 700 three-pointers, which are more than Larry Bird. It's like, if Larry Bird played in this generation, are you kidding me? So you can't, they didn't even shoot it. The three-point shot came into the league in 1979. Chris Ford, impress your friends with that. The late Chris Ford hit the first one. And when I was covering the Utah Jazz in the era that I was, which was Stockton Malone and in the mid 90s, late 90s, whatever, if you took a three on the break, if you had an opportunity for a layup and you kicked it out to the corner for a three, Jerry Sloan would run onto the court and strangle you himself. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not one of those, the game is fine. I'm not one who's bitching, moaning, all those kind of things about the three-point line. It is what it is. Analytics say you should take it. Can it make the game ugly at times? It can. But I'm just saying that back in those days, coaches were like, what? You took a three if you were down a lot late. That was about it. You didn't do it. So I don't need to get into that whole thing. I want to stay with Hall of Fame topics because I want to get into that before Middlekauff joins us in 35 minutes. So give me your thoughts. I just thought that was cool to play. I saw that this morning. And if you know nothing else about me, I love going back in history because, just that whole thing, it was like a 3-minute cut there to have Harris Barton, to have Montana surgically go down the field like that. It was just so cool, man. Just so cool to be like, oh my God, look at this. Incredible. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, I guess. I'm going on this whole thing about how awesome that makes me feel. And I thought it was really, really cool. So anyway, there you go. And if you're a young part of the demographic and you hadn't seen that, or you hadn't seen it in a while, you weren't alive for it, that's how cool it was. It was cool when the 49ers won Super Bowls. It was cool when Joe Montana was on the field and you thought, we're not losing. We're not going to lose to, who's the quarterback for the Bengals? Boomer Esiason. Boomer Esiason's not beating us. We have 16, and that's how the Chiefs feel about 15. So, except Joe didn't get all the calls that Patrick Mahomes gets. Anyway, I digress. All right, Middlekauff's going to join us in about 30 minutes. We'll get into the coaching stuff. We'll go through the NFL playoffs, ask him about all these kind of things. He's always got an opinion on stuff. So let me get this in before we talk to Middlekauff. So the Hall of Fame. I don't know how much you care about the Hall of Fame, any Hall of Fame. I just was on the I was preaching on the soapbox about Roger Craig because I think it's ridiculous. But the Baseball Hall of Fame was yesterday, and let me show you that if you didn't know. I have no problem with Ichiro. I got a great Ichiro story for you. I want to tell you in just a second. Remind me because the ADD will kick in. Ichiro gets 393 of 394 votes. Whoever didn't vote for Ichiro should be taken off the panel. This whole thing, let me just start with this. This whole thing about who's a first ballot, who's not, who gets 100% of the vote, just stop it. Vote for the best player, all right? The only guy to get 100% of the vote is Mariano Rivera. All right, whatever. Jeter didn't get it. Griffey didn't get it. All these kind of things. And keep in the back of your mind that I laugh at all this stuff because the fact that Barry Bonds isn't in is still stupid. And even if you're not in this market, you don't like Barry as a person, I get it. But the reason Barry's not in is, it was about the substances that he took and a lot of other people took as well. And there are players in the Hall of Fame who easily and obviously Mike Piazza, David Ortiz took as well, but they're in. And somehow because Barry was an ass to the media, he's not in. So Ichiro deserved to get 100% of the vote. He didn't, which is stupid. Vallejo's own CC Sabathia gets in. Go back and look at the numbers. Easy. 86.8 in his first time. The issue I have, and don't make me be the jerk here, but Billy Wagner was on for the 10th time. and he got 82.5% of the vote. You need 78% to get into the Hall of Fame. And my whole thing, and I don't want to, well, I was going to say I don't want to use Billy Wagner as the poster boy for this, but he hasn't thrown a pitch in over 10 years. There's a waiting period here, obviously, and Billy Wagner gets into the Hall of Fame on his 10th try. Billy Wagner hasn't thrown a pitch. Billy Wagner hasn't changed. The numbers haven't changed. The analytics haven't changed, all these kind of things. But for some reason, the gods that are these people who vote for the Baseball Writers Association of America, who vote for this, think, let's make Billy Wagner wait 10 years because he's a fringe Hall of Famer. Well, that means then it's the Hall of Very Good. Billy Wagner is the Hall of Very Good. He's not the Hall of Fame, because if he would have gotten in earlier. Carlos Beltran is at 70.3% in his third year. That means Carlos Beltran, who we all bitch and moan about, got traded. The Giants got Carlos Beltran in 2011 for Zach Wheeler. And for years and years on sports radio, even before Zach Wheeler was any good, we complained about Beltran being traded for him. And yet Carlos Beltran will get into the Hall of Fame because he has 7 more chances, even though he's going to have no at-bats between now and then. He's going to get into the Hall of Fame. And Barry Bonds isn't. Barry Bonds, like 3 years of his career Balco, is better than all of Carlos Beltran's career. And I know of Carlos Beltran with the Royals and how good he was and all these kind of things. And he was with a number of teams. Also, Carlos Beltran was the ringleader of the cheating scandal of the Astros. That Carlos Beltran, same guy. But let's not let Pete Rose in, and let's not let Barry Bonds in, and let's not let Roger Clemens in, because Carlos Beltran, who was the ringleader of the Astros in 2017 in cheating, is going to get into the Hall of Fame. Really? Okay. And then you have Alex Rodriguez, which Alex Rodriguez is never going to get in. He's at 37.1%. Manny Ramirez is never going to get in, 34.3% on his 9th chance. Those two guys deserve to get into the Hall of Fame. Andy Pettit, 27.9% in his 7th year, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. So Alex Rodriguez because of PEDs, Manny Ramirez because of PEDs, Andy Pettit because he admitted to PEDs, even though he was one of the best postseason pitchers of all time. Those guys are not going to get into the Hall of Fame. But Piazza's in, and David Ortiz is in. And the reason David Ortiz is in is because he's doing TV, and he knows damn well what he's doing, and he's smiling, he's laughing, and he's Big Papi. So he gets into the Hall of Fame because the writers who vote for this stuff like Big Papi. Now, he's got great numbers. He didn't play defense. He was a DH. He played half of the game. Edgar Martinez is great, and I think Edgar Martinez deserves to be in. He was a third baseman for a while, mostly a DH. But again, to get in as a DH, you'd have to be outstanding because you didn't play any defense. You know, like when some people play, well, he doesn't play any defense, but was actually out in the field. No, David Ortiz didn't play defense at all and had PEDs hanging over his head. But because he's Big Papi and he went on, after the Boston Marathon and F-bombed on the field, which I have no issue with, but people like Big Papi. They do. They like him. That's why he's in. People don't like Alex Rodriguez. I don't want to sit here and defend Alex Rodriguez because I don't like him. He's a jerk. I've met him. He's disingenuous. The only reason he's doing TV is try to curry favoritism like David Ortiz did, like Terrell Davis did to get in, like Kurt Warner did to get in. They didn't play long enough, really, but they got in. But one of the reasons they went in is because their PR people said, hey, man, go on TV and be likable. Barry Bonds can't do that. He's not capable. So Barry Bonds is never going to curry favor. He's never going to get in our lifetime, but possibly. But the seniors committee is part of the people who don't want Barry Bonds to be in. If you put Barry Bonds back on the ballot, because it's turning over a little bit and there's some people who understand how great Barry was, they put him in. But the fact that a Billy Wagner gets in, but an Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, or Andy Pettit doesn't get in, or a Pete Rose now, I mean, Pete died. Didn't he serve it enough time? I mean, can't they just have like a special session? It's their Hall of Fame. Like, put him in. And it's embarrassing that these guys get in and Barry Bonds doesn't. I'll do this every single year. I'm sorry, but I look at these names and I laugh. Manny Ramirez is a Hall of Famer. Alex Rodriguez is a Hall of Famer. Carlos Beltran's going to get in, but his cheating was somehow not as bad as Barry Bonds cheating. Everybody cheated in that era, and I covered the game back then, and everybody knew your head doesn't grow that way. Brady Anderson doesn't just hit 50 home runs. People were laughing about it. Major League Baseball was counting the bucks. Bud Selig's in the Hall of Fame, and he was part of the whole reason. Oh, they're using PEDs? Oh, my God. When did that start? Everybody knew it. And then the same contradiction comes about when the same people who are voting were we're right in the middle of this whole thing too. And we all knew what was going on. And now we're like, oh, I won't vote for that guy. You knew what he was doing. Anyway, I know we do this every single year. It's a big deal. I'll give you one more example. And I know you don't like Curt Schilling, and neither do I. But it's not based on who you like and who you hate. So I'm glad CeCe Sabathia is in the Hall of Fame. But because people don't like Curt Schilling's not in the Hall of Fame. He's a jerk. His politics don't match up. All these different things about Curt Schilling. I don't love Curt Schilling, but I do remember when the Diamondbacks won the World Series and it was Schilling and Randy Johnson. I do remember the bloody sock. I do it. And so we just got done talking about Joe Montana. It's not how much you do, it's when you do it. And Curt Schilling stepped up in big times. And I'm not saying CeCe Sabathia didn't. I just saw this morning and I went, it's the same kind of example. I don't like Curt Schilling. I don't like Alex Rodriguez. But that shouldn't matter of whether they get into the Hall of Fame or not. But people like Big Papi, so he's in. Like, that shouldn't have anything to do with it. And then the last thing I'll just go back to is somebody thought that Ichiro wasn't a Hall of Famer. Not on my watch. He's not getting 100% on my watch. I can guarantee you it was somebody in New York because they wanted Mariano Rivera to be the only 100% guy. So go back, find that guy, and kick him off. All the stupid politics that go on because of the Hall of Fame, like the fact that, again, I'll go back to Roger Craig. How is he not in? How is Roger Craig, the first 1,000 guy who is an integral member of the 49ers winning all those championships, how is he not in? It makes zero sense. But politics say, and this is the only thing I can gather from it, is that they put so many 49ers in the Hall of Fame that they decided that's enough. Not putting him in. And at some point he's going to get in, and unfortunately he's probably going to be passed away when he does, because all of a sudden it's like, oh man, that guy was really good. Well, he hasn't run the ball or caught a pass in 25 years, but okay. I mean, that's what happened with Stabler. His family got to celebrate it. He didn't while he was alive. Steve McMichael was a really, really good player for the Bears. I don't know if he was Hall of Fame worthy, but thank goodness if they were going to put him in, they put him in on his deathbed. I hope he can understand. But for some reason, there's so much politics involved in this whole thing, and it's writers. And so what they think to themselves is, well, if you weren't nice to me, you're not getting in the Hall of Fame. But Big Papi, he's funny. He pours vodka into Frank Thomas's bottle when he's not looking. Ha, 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 ha. He's funny. But Alex Rodriguez, who's on the same panel, he's not really funny, and he was a jerk to me. And Alex Rodriguez is a jerk. I'm not saying he's not. But I am saying, like, that's the determining factor. It sure seems to be. Some dumb thing that has nothing to do with the sport. So anyway, sorry. I had to go on a bit of a rant here. So this is Billy Wagner, and this is really cool. And I don't want to be a jerk, but I just want to show you this. On his 10th try, Billy Wagner gets into the Hall of Fame, and if you haven't seen this, this is his reaction.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, so really cool. And I don't want to be the bad guy here. Really, really, really cool. I felt really good for the guy when I saw it. It's his 10th chance. He's not sure he gets in. As far as the Veterans Committee, who the hell knows? So he's overwhelmed with emotion. And so when people say they don't care, when Barry Bonds says he doesn't care, he's lying straight through his teeth. It's the ultimate. Barry Bonds was pissed. The reason why he started taking PEDs because he was pissed that he was getting overshadowed by Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. And he thought to himself, So what do you think Barry Bonds really thinks about not being in the Hall of Fame? I mean, it's the Hall of Fame's loss. It's stupid. Pete Rose served his penance and passed away. Can't you just have some kind of special session? It's your Hall of Fame. Pete Rose has got to be in the Hall of Fame. Has got to be. I had a conversation with a guy the other day, and he was saying that Eli Manning should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame because you can't tell the story of the NFL without Eli Manning. I'm like, you sure as hell can. But why do you think Eli Manning is doing Manning Cast? Why do you think Eli Manning is doing Chad Powers? Why do you think Eli Manning is doing Toyota commercials? He doesn't need the money. He's fine. He made a ton of money in his career. He's doing it to curry favor to get into the Hall of Fame. That's what it is, because it means a boatload to these guys. It means a ton to Barry Bonds. It means a ton to Eli Manning. Eli Manning's greatest attribute, even though I like him on the on the Manning cast. I think he's funny. The Chad Powers thing. I have nothing personally against Eli Manning. He's not a Hall of Fame quarterback. And then if he is, then it starts the whole thing of Jim Plunkett. Okay, you won 2 Super Bowls. But did you ever think to yourself when Eli Manning was playing, this would be my ultimate. I don't need to look at numbers. We've established that. If I have to delve deep into analytics and numbers and all these kind of things, then you're not a Hall of Famer. I just have to this is the ultimate test for me. It doesn't have to be for you, but for me, my ultimate test of whether someone is Hall of Fame worthy in any sport is, right off the top of my head, I can either say they are or they're not. Because I pay attention to this stuff pretty closely. I never thought to myself when the 49ers played the Giants back in those days, that damn, I fear Eli Manning, and never thought about it. I never thought, oh man, Eli Manning's coming into town. Now I thought the Giants are coming to town, and Mike Strahan's coming to town, and that defense is coming to town, and that really good defensive line's coming to town, and Tiki Barber's coming in. It was just it was kind of a culmination of things. Like the Giants are good. The Giants are good. But I never thought of Eli Manning like I did Peyton Manning. Like when Peyton Manning was coming into town, you're like, damn. When Tom Brady was coming into town, you thought, damn. So he was a contemporary of those guys. Now he beat Brady a couple of times. That was his best attribute. And I just got done saying, hey, it was when you got things done. There's no doubt. Eli Manning played well in those games, thanks to David Tyree and others. But he did. But I never thought to myself in a game, Eli's coming to town, my team is screwed. Did anybody else think that? Because that should be the ultimate test. And by the way, if you want to go to numbers, he has what? The same amount of touchdowns as interceptions. So that's not great. It's nothing against Eli. I like Eli. But one of the reasons I think he's as exposed as he is and doing all the things that he is because he's thinking to himself, I got to get in the Hall of Fame. Like once he gets in the Hall of Fame, I don't think we have a Manning cast anymore. Maybe Peyton will do it, but I don't know that Eli will. Eli all of a sudden has become not the comedian that Peyton is, but he's certainly as exposed as he is. Peyton's always done a lot of commercials, hosted Saturday Night Live, is actually pretty funny at it. And Eli's pretty funny as well. Again, I'm not cracking on Eli. I'm just saying there should be a line, and this is kind of where our conversation started, where it says up on the chalkboard right there, the Hall of Fame is Hall of Good, the Hall of Very, Very Good. And to me, and I could be wrong, just my opinion, is that the Hall of Fame should be reserved for the greatest of the greatest. So Billy Wagner, for example, who hasn't thrown a pitch in the last 10 years that I know of, but is on his 10th and final year. And so some baseball writers think, well, he's going into the Hall of Fame, but he had to wait 10 years. So there's levels to the Hall of Fame. There's first ballot guys. I get that. There's first ballot guys. Actually, there's Mariano Rivera who gets 100% of the vote. There's first ballot guys like Jeter and Ichiro who get 99.7. So the guy who didn't vote for Ichiro is a dumbass and should be blown off the out of the yard there. Same with Derek. Like, you're not voting for Derek Jeter. Well, I'm not voting for him because I don't think he should have 100% of the vote. Is he a Hall of Famer or not, you dumbass? And that's what it comes down. Is he a Hall of Famer or not? Like, stop with the politics. He's not a first ballot. He's not a... Look, Billy Wagner gets one chance and everybody like him. Is he in the Hall of Fame or not? We have enough analytics going around right now, but you shouldn't have to dive deep. I shouldn't have to put on scuba gear and dive deep and go, I didn't ever see that number before. He is definitely a Hall of Famer. They just did it because he was in his 10th year. And they said, okay, well, he's a 10th year guy. There's not going to be something on his plaque that says, got in the 10th year. You're the Hall of Famer or not. And once you wait your waiting period in any sport, there's one vote. That's how I would do it. There's one vote. And it's really, really, really hard to get in. Like, if you're not absolutely positively one of the best of all time, I'll give you the layer between first ballot and Hall of Famer. There is a difference between that. I do believe that. But beyond the greatest of the greatest, so the first, that first level or first layer is your Montanas and your Bradys and your, Emmitt Smith is the leading rusher of all time, even though I don't think he's the greatest running back. I mean, there's that. There's the Jerry Rices of the world, right? I mean, where you just go Hall of Fame, don't even have to think about it. Like, that's a 1 second discussion. Like, there's, Ken Griffey Jr. and it just go on down the line. The greatest of the greatest are in the Hall of Fame, and there's no question. There's a layer for that. I get it. But then there's the next level, which is you're just a Hall of Famer, and you either get in or you don't. So your first year is your only year. That would be it for me. There's no new information. They're not throwing a pitch. They're not swinging a bat. They're not throwing a pass. They're not catching a pass. They're not making a tackle. They're not sacking anybody. There's nothing different. There's nothing different. Now, basketball is different because they take your whole body of work. So basketball, the Naismith Hall of Fame in basketball is your college career, your international career, all these different things that you did. So when people say, well, that guy doesn't deserve to get in, well, it's not just NBA related. If you had a great college career, they take that into account. If internationally you did all these things like Arvydas Sabonis, who didn't come over to the NBA till later, they take all those things into account internationally, college, and your professional career, and they throw that in there. And I think that's pretty cool. So certain guys that you wouldn't think would get into the Hall of Fame are going to get into the Hall of Fame. So that's a totally different deal. But as far as the NBA, I'm not as familiar with the NHL, but as far as the NBA and the NFL, as far as Major League Baseball and the NFL is concerned, it's pretty similar. Although in the NFL, you've got to have a guy make a case. It's just like, look, I don't need all that. And I don't need to do a deep dive on numbers, because if I do, then you're not a Hall of Famer. That's just all there is to it. And you've got to take, I think, some sort of, because this is going to be a situation with Patrick Willis is, he gets in the Hall of Fame. more and more people are looking at, okay, I don't care how long you played, how effective were you? Because Kurt Warner didn't really play long enough, and Terrell Davis didn't really play long enough, and Patrick Willis didn't play long enough, and Luke Kuechly, and we can go on down the line. Willis played 7 years. They were a hell of a 7 years. So Patrick Willis deserves to get into the Hall of Fame. Do you care enough about that? I just ranted like 20 minutes on it. So it's just, it has so many layers, and I know we talk about it every single year, but I like my thoughts to be known on it, because I just have certain philosophies that if I was a voter, and it wouldn't have anything, and I know it does, but I would just make up my own rules. I don't care what you did off the field. I really don't. Unless you're OJ, I would have taken OJ out of the Hall of Fame a long time ago. If you kill somebody, if you do something really, really heinous, you're out. Like, you don't just get in and you're in forever. Like, OJ, you're out, man. Like, you're out. I don't care. You're out. You can take guys out of the Hall of Fame all you want, but it's just too much based on these writers, and a lot of them don't even really pay attention anymore. And you know what? Barry Bonds wasn't nice to me, but David Ortiz was. Or Kurt Warner was on the NFL Network forever. Super nice guy, donates to a lot of causes. And I like Kurt Warner a lot. But Kurt Warner's the Hall of very, very good. He won a Super Bowl, the greatest show on turf. That was awesome. I don't subscribe to the theory of, well, you can't tell the story without player X. That's not really my criterion for getting into the Hall of Fame. Just like MVP, some people have a certain thing that they look at. Well, could he have, like MVP shouldn't be based on because you have crummy players around you. Like, a lot of people are looking at Josh Allen this year as the MVP to say, well, what would they be without him because they have nothing else? And then a guy gets penalized because he has better players around him or something like that. I don't know. So anyway, don't get me started on that. But I'm just saying, Hall of Fame should be for the elite of the elite of the elite of the elite, and not for Hall of very, very good. And by the way, you're a nice guy. So that's how I see it. CC Sabathia should have got in. Ichiro should have got in. I hate to be the bad guy with Billy Wagner, but it took him 10 years to get in. You get 10 chances to get in the Hall of Fame when nothing has changed, when you haven't thrown a pitch, haven't swung at a ball, haven't hit a ball out, haven't hit a free throw, haven't hit a three, haven't made a tackle, haven't had a sack, haven't caught a ball, haven't thrown a ball. I think we are well established here. All right, 9:46, 14 minutes or so. We'll see when Middlekauff shows up. Still got a couple of things. By the way, let me look out to the text line and make sure everybody's cool. What do you think? Am I wrong? I mean, I could be. A lot of people are like, hey, you know what? I got no issue with it. Let's see. Yeah. I think Mahomes is getting it anyway. That's why Mahomes does those State Farm commercials, and Kelsey too. And Kelsey did SNL. Kelsey's getting in. Mahomes could probably walk off a curb right now, get hit by a bus, and be in. I mean, there are certain guys like that. I mean, what's Mahomes in? What year is Mahomes in? He got drafted in 2017, so what's his 7th year for Mahomes? Boy, that's crazy. 7th year for Mahomes. Mahomes will get in. I mean, he's got? A couple of MVPs, a couple of 2-3 Super Bowl trophies. He's in. So, anyway, there's my thought on it. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Maybe I'm going too far, but I mean, it's a Hall of Fame. It's a Hall of Fame. So, yeah, here's Daniel right here on Plunkett v. Right. Eli and Jim Plunkett won 2 Super Bowls, but both are average quarterbacks. My whole thing on Plunkett is, and I'm biased, I love Jim Plunkett. I'm going to do a bad thing here and you're all going to make fun of me. I've been to a Jim Plunkett tailgate at Stanford. Now, I like Jim. I got to know him a little bit when I was working with the Raiders through Papa, and he's one of the greatest guys ever. Having said that, he's not in the Hall of Fame. I don't think he's in the Hall of Fame. He won a couple of Super Bowls. He had great teams. He was a very good player after he kind of got everything situated. If you haven't looked into the background of Jim Plunkett, the things that he did despite some of the things that some of the drawbacks, or not drawbacks, holdbacks that he had in his younger days is absolutely amazing what he did. And I really like Jim Plunkett. But just because you won 2 Super Bowls as the quarterback of a team does not mean that you belong into the Hall of Fame. And I never feared Eli Manning. As far as Eli Manning, and we all, we're all of a certain age where we remember Eli Manning playing. My team's playing the Giants, right? Whether I was working for the Raiders or the Niners, and I'm thinking to myself, man, Eli Manning's coming into town. I mean, we may have talked about him, but when certain quarterbacks come to town, I think to myself, oh my God. And we would spend half the pregame on talking about just that one guy. We never did that with Eli Manning. I never sat there and went, Eli Manning. We talked about everything on the Giants. Look, I'm glad you asked there, Wonder Boy, and thank you for contributing to the cause. You can contribute with supers and stickers and all those kind of things. It says, how do I sign up for your monthly membership? Don't see a link to sign up on the YouTube app or your website. By the way, bring roids back to Major League Baseball. Look, man, I know that is probably not a popular opinion, but I'll just say this. It is a spectacle sport, all these sports. And believe me, I'd look the other way, but that just tells you where my morals land, which not very high on the thing. I didn't mind, but I'm just telling you that during that time I did cover baseball. Everybody knew. Everybody knew. How could you not? Hell, you're a fan and you knew. And I'm not degrading fans. It's just like, oh my God, that guy's got a giant head. He's got a lot of acne going on. He hasn't hit more than 18 home runs in his career, and now he's hitting 50. And every single guy, I mean, we got like 10 guys hitting 55 plus home runs. Gee, maybe the wind was just blowing out. It's that damn baseball. Man, they just can't get that thing right. That thing's going out. Then Nike's doing commercials with Tom Glavine and Greg Maddux. Chicks dig the long ball, and everybody's going, wow, this is amazing. Yet no one knew. So the media didn't know. No one knew. Nobody thought anything weird was going on. Bud Selig. And then all of a sudden they get caught. And it's like, oh my God, what in the, they were doing what? Everybody knew, McGuire's got Anderstein or whatever that was. And it's like everybody knew. Sammy Sosa went from stick thin to like this gigantic guy, just like Barry Bonds did. Barry Bonds, when he's on the Pirates, is this skinny guy. Now, he had great power and could do all those different things. He was still an MVP, but all of a sudden, he turns into, the Incredible Hulk right before our eyes. And we're going, you can add 30 pounds of muscle in an off season. I mean, come on. Can you imagine if that was happening now in the social media era and they would have the side-by-sides? I mean, they still do that, but at least the fans would be a part of it going, will you guys wake up? Will you guys tell us the truth here? Will you stop it? Like, we know what's going on. We all knew what was going on, especially the media. And then the same media turns around and says, you ain't getting into my Hall of Fame. No. Bud Selig's like, what? Meanwhile, they put him in. Crazy. Oh, let me go back. The monthly membership. So I'm sending out videos. Like yesterday, for example, I sent out the Robert Sala short video, which I'm going to do those every single day. So what I'm going to turn that into is that, and I'll get around to your question, Wonder Boy, and thank you very much for contributing today. I really appreciate it. What I'm going to do is I started this thing and I called it 3 minutes on. So in addition to the 8 a.m. show every single day, I started doing this thing and I called it 3 minutes on. So I would take these things like a Robert Sala situation. I'd say, 3 minutes on Robert Sala. And I realized, and you already know this, that I can't even clear my throat in 3 minutes. So I started it yesterday. I did it and I said, okay, it's going to be 5 minutes on. Well, I end up doing 7 minutes on Robert Sala. And to be honest with you, I edited stuff out of that. It was like 12 minutes long. And I was like, not that I couldn't do, it wasn't bad stuff necessarily, but it was like, I just did 12 minutes. I said, it's 3 minutes on. I posted it as 5 minutes on. I got it down to 7 minutes and it was actually 12 minutes. So I have a problem. I can't stop. So what I'm going to just do is I'm going to do these things where I just say, I think I'm going to call it something like the story of the day. And so I'm going to do my regular show. When Middlekauff comes onto the show around 10 o'clock, what are we at? 9:52. So 8 minutes or so whenever Middlekauff jumps on the show. So Middlekauff's going to jump on the show around 10 o'clock. We'll talk some NFL. We'll talk Robert Sala, get his thoughts. Remember, he's doing the 3 and Out podcast with Colin Cowherd. Middlekauff's a great guy. Used to be in the market at 95.7 The Game with Guy Haberman. He and Haberman used to do the Haberman and Middlekauff podcast. Now Middlekauff is working with Colin Cowherd's podcast network, The Volume. Anyway, long story short on that. So we're going to have all that. So I'll separate out. I'll have the regular show, which will have everything on it. And you can watch that daily on YouTube. I recreate that. You can go to the website. I'll put it up there. JohnLundUnleashed.com. I'll make it into a podcast, all those kind of things. But then what I'll do is I'll do some shorts like I do. They're like 60-second deals throughout the day that you'll get alerts on. But I'll make that for just insiders. And then also I'll shoot out a story of the day, which probably be, like I said, 10 to 12 minutes on just what was the biggest story. Like today, we already did Saleh yesterday, so maybe we'll throw something out a little bit more. And then we'll do, some other things beyond that. Like I said, we'll do post games and so forth. By the way, since I bring up post games, you want to do a post game tonight for Kings Warriors? Is that a big enough game? Because I know we have a lot of Kings fans up in the Sacramento area or even in the Bay Area that are Kings fans. It is a rivalry, and they are going to be fighting for playoff spots. Do you want to do a Kings Warriors post game tonight? Because if you do, then I'll jump back on tonight. So anyway, Wonder Boy's question is, how do I sign up? I will research that because I thought it was obvious on the YouTube page, but maybe it is not. If it is not, then I will send that out via at John Lund Radio on X, where we're live right now. So at John Lund Radio on X. I will also post that as a blog post, and I'll make it really easy so you can link to it at JohnLundUnleashed.com. So thank you, Wonder Boy, for bringing that to my attention. I know that people have signed up for it. It's only like $5, and we'll have chats, exclusive chats, all those kind of things. We'll bring on interviews exclusively. So I will make sure that it is worth your while, because I am not in the business of taking your money without giving you a great return. So there you go. And I will make sure that we get that done. So thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate it. And we'll do that. Let me double check that what people are talking about, because I either am going to stay with a little bit of football in waiting for our friend John Middlekauff, or there's a lot of NBA stuff. All right, here's the latest. I just got this from Jordan Schultz report. Robert Sala flying into Jacksonville on Thursday for a Friday meeting with Shad Khan, Trent Baalke, and others. With Liam Cohen out of the running, many around the league view Saleh as a potential favorite. And then he makes me click on this. It wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars expand their head coaching search. So if you're new to the show, let's just do that based on what Jordan Schultz just said right there. Again, Jordan Schultz, who is a pretty good source. I didn't know that I would call him Adam Schefter-ish, but he's close. Robert Sala flying into Jacksonville on Thursday for a Friday meeting with Shad Khan, the owner, Trent Baalke, and others, with Liam Cohen out of the running, which was announced this morning. If you're just joining the show, many around the league view Saleh as a potential favorite, blah, 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 blah. All right, let's go back to our conversation that we had at the beginning. And again, I wrote this piece. Let me just put it back up on the screen really quickly. We'll wait for Middlekauff. Let me write, what are the chances? Okay, so this is on the blog right now. Yeah, here it is right here. All right, so if you go to JohnLundUnleashed.com, I'll do one of these every single day, which is the big story of the day. If you click on that right there, which I don't want to right now, you'll get my 7 minutes on that. But in addition, I wrote this up. So I say, what are the chances of a Robert Sala reunion? I talked about the head coaching situation, where he would go from a head coaching standpoint. I do mention in there that Liam Cohen was the front runner. That is not the case now. The Raiders are going to expand theirs. So they were talking Pete Carroll. That still may be happening, but there's a report that they're going to expand their search now that Ben Johnson went to the Bears. Then I went into the second paragraph that if Robert Sala was going to go somewhere as a defensive coordinator, assuming he didn't get a head coaching job, 49ers, Lions, Raiders, Cowboys, I still think 49ers. He's from Dearborn, Michigan, and the Lions are a really good team, obviously, so he could go there. Raiders, if Pete Carroll were to get the job in Vegas, Saleh worked for Carroll in Seattle, so there'd be a chance there. And then the Cowboys, even though I don't think he's going to get the head coaching job there, as I explained in that paragraph, he could go there as the defensive coordinator because Jerry Jones has spent money on defensive coordinators in the past. It's just that he's going to get somebody like Kellen Moore or Schottenheimer, somebody who will be under him and understand the rules and how things work, i.e. don't get in Jerry Jones' spotlight. And so I explained it there, and then I go down and I show you about the years for one Brandon Staley. One great year with the Rams in 2020, where they were first in points, first in yards, allowed 1 touchdown pass against 12 interceptions. So you can go back and read that whole thing. You can go back to my 7 minutes on there. It says 5, but it's actually 7, which is why I'm changing that. 49ers and Saleh reunion. It doesn't change my opinion a whole lot because I still think that the situation in Jacksonville is a bad one. I went through this before, but I'll do it really quickly just because I'm going to ask Middlekauff the same things here in just a minute when he joins the show. But the thing I see with Jacksonville is a hair-triggered owner, a GM who is in limbo in Trent Baalke, who clearly has naked pictures or some sort of blackmailing device against the owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I just don't see that would be the situation for Robert Sala. Why not, Lund? Glad you asked. Because if I look at the situation with Saleh, this is it. This will be his last head coaching opportunity should he fail. So the Jets, we all look at that situation and say, Woody Johnson is a joke. The Jets are a joke. So he gets that chance. He gets one more chance probably. So he says, okay, I'm going to roll the dice on Jacksonville. Trent Baalke's out. And then they're not going to give you 2 other opportunities to be a head coach. So this would be it for Saleh. He's going to roll the dice on this. Maybe he's going to fly in on Friday. All right, let's ask more. John Middlekauff is amazing. We've been friends for years since he was at 95.7 The Game. He is absolutely, positively moved way past that. And he has the ultimate life in Scottsdale, Arizona. He golfs. He outkicked his coverage with his, I think, wife now. I know they're engaged, but wife. Absolutely outkicked his coverage. He's living the best life ever, and he's on the 3 and Out podcast as part of the volume with Colin Cowherd. So let's get Middlekauff up here and get moving here. And there is the great John Middlekauff. Are you going golfing today? Are you golfing? Is that
no,
what you're
it's I took
dude, you look so tan and you look so Arizona. It's amazing.
I took the dog for a walk yesterday afternoon, and it was so cold.
Shut up. It's not cold.
And then this other lady on the walk said she just looked before she left, and it was 57 degrees.
You sound like my kid, bro. He's at ASU, and you know that. But so he was a big snow guy and everything. He learned to ski in Utah when he was really young, and he loved snow. Yeah. And he's like, I'm going to go back to snow. I'm going to go back to snow. Then he goes to ASU. He just turned 21, and he's like, he comes back here for Christmas break, and dude, it's like 60 every day. And he's like, I'm freezing my ass off. This is terrible. I can't wait to go to Arizona. His birthday was January 3rd, and he went back December 28th. He's like, he stayed here for like 10 days. He's like, I'm out. Like, I'm out. This is way too cold. So his blood is way thin.
You think George moves back to Cali or stays
no
in AZ?
Chance. He loves Arizona, dude. And that's just Tempe. Like he'll come up to Scottsdale sometimes if I'm like buying.
Yeah, wait till he gets a little money as he gets older and comes, up by me. He'll fucking
he knows.
He'll never look back.
Bro, he knows. Like, he comes back here and I'm like, look how expensive it is. And now he's to the age where he kind of understands it. And so now he's like, no chance. Like, no chance. All right. Let's I don't want to keep you forever because Arizona awaits, but so I was just talking about this. So I'm looking at Saleh, and last night I'm thinking to myself, well, if Liam Cohn goes to Jacksonville, then he's not going to the Raiders. He's not going to Dallas. Would he go to Detroit as the DC? He's from Dearborn, Michigan. I don't know what he feels about his family, whatever. Is that a better situation to get him another head coaching gig? But what I was saying there, as I saw you backstage, is I don't know that Saleh's going to take this job because we can excuse the Jets thing. The Jets are a dumpster fire. Woody Johnson's an idiot. Okay, he's not being blamed for that situation. But a lot of times you get a second opportunity. So does he want to blow that second opportunity, which might be his last, on Jacksonville, where you say Trent Baalke is at best lame duck? You got an owner that's not great. He's going through coaches. You got Trevor Lawrence, who kind of has underperformed to this point. So if you're Robert Sala, would you rather take the Jacksonville job knowing that might be your final opportunity, that you got to pass with New York, but you're not going to get a lot of passes, even though Jacksonville's a joke too? Or are you better served to go to the Niners or Detroit or somewhere like that, be a DC, and then re-enter the coaching cycle again in a year or two? What do you think he's going to do?
Well, to me, I think we see it all the time. There's just no guarantees year to year. Things change. I never would have thought in a million years that Cliff Kingsbury would be a name we'd talk about, and then he gets Jaden Daniels, who looks like, the better version of a thrower of Lamar Jackson. You're like, okay, he's going to be a head coach again. It's like, well, go to San Francisco, resurrect. Well, this is 2025. The 49ers, we saw this year, Bosa got dinged up. Fred Warner played the whole season with a broken ankle. Charvarius is gone, so you're gonna have to really depend on some younger guys. How Hufunga's probably gone. I know you have some major question marks with the draft. Just in terms of you're going to be dependent on whoever, assuming that they stay at like 11 and 43, they're going to need impact players. What does Ayuk look like coming back? I just think it's risky. You and me hope the Niners are good next year, but there is no guarantee that they get back to like that dominant form. So I think you get a chance to be a head coach. You just saw Liam Cohen, who got $4.5 million. They said, I think one of the highest paid coordinators in the league, might be the highest, is Fangio, makes like $4.5 million bucks.
He's worth it.
Well, as a first-time head coach, if you're Liam Cohen, the Jags are going to pay you what, $6-7 million? That's why Kevin O'Connell was kind of making a stink and leaking out like I might get traded for, because he was making $6-7 million and he wanted to double that. Well, if you're Liam Cohen, it's like, well, the Jags are terrible. I'm only going to make a couple $1 million more. I'd rather just stay here. I feel pretty good about my chances. If you're Robert Sala, you've already been a head coach, so that number's closer to 10, right? So you get $10 million. They signed you to a 4 or 5 year contract. There's just no guarantee that money will ever be on the table. And it's not like the 49ers are just some plug and play. We're winning 12 and 13 games. So if he's offered, I think it's insane. Like, you're going to make Robert Sala your head coach, but it does show you that our guy Balky, it's crazy, man. He's for a guy that's like gruff dude from the Dakotas and Minnesota, just like feels like he just sits in there and watches tape all day. He's got a lot of Gavin Newsom to him. I mean, that guy's a politician through and through. But when you're around him and the way people talk about him, he's like, football guy, he just watches tape all day. BS. No way. Because you don't. A lot of quote unquote tape GMs, they would have been fired years ago. This guy can smooth when the cameras are off and he's, with the elites.
John Middlekauff is joining us 3 and out, as you can see right there, at John Middlekauff, NFL super genius, former NFL scout with the Eagles. I was saying this earlier. He must be able to, because I'm just not good at this. I don't know about you.
Oh, terrible.
I'm not great at managing up.
I mean, it's
people. It's what it is. I'm not an ass kisser. I can't manage up well. I can't sit in a cubicle. I'm not good at it. So Trent Baalke must be amazing at it. But in terms of, and I agree with you on Salah. I think he needs to go back in, be part of the cycle. I think there's other guys out there. I think Jacksonville needs an offensive mind to try to help Trevor Lawrence. So I would be surprised if it was him, which is why I still think he's going to end up here or with the Lions, depending on that situation. But
have there been rumors, beside that he's from there, that Dan Campbell wants him?
Yeah, and maybe you know better than I do. Look, I don't know what his personal situation is like. Everybody tries to make this connection always. Well, he wants to go home, and Dearborn is a suburb of Detroit, but I used to live in Detroit. Dearborn is where all the the car factories are and all that kind of stuff, the plants. It's not a great place. So I don't know that his family's there. They might all be gone. And it's not always great to go back home. Like where I'm from versus where I live, this is home for me now. So I don't know what his situation is there. But yeah, I've heard that the Lions are interested. I don't know his connection with Dan Campbell. I do know, like, let's say Pete Carroll gets the Raiders job, which I don't know that he does. Salah worked for him, so I could see that. Jerry Jones is not going to hire him as the head coach, but he has hired high-profile defensive coordinators. But still, I don't think they have the personnel where he would be real successful in either of those places. So to me, it comes down to Detroit or the 49ers. But in terms of the Jaguars situation, which has everybody panicked here, why would you go to a situation with a hair-triggered owner, a lame duck, even though he's great at it? He can't survive another year of bad, can Trent Baalke, especially if it's, well, maybe he can because you're laughing because But that's not a great situation. And Salah's not going to get multiple opportunities. So let's say Salah takes this job with the Jags. If he flames out here, then yeah, the situation in New York sucks and the situation with the Jags sucks, but you got 2 chances, man. You're not getting a third. So is he going to blow a possible second and last chance on Jacksonville?
I mean, what if they throw $40-50 million in front of your face?
And then it's guaranteed. Right. That's a good point.
The NFL has turned into, I've been saying this for a long time, Wall Street on grass. Forever, it's like even back before the money exploded, if you were a head coach, you were a 1%er. Quarterback coaches now, and Brian Greasy probably makes $1 million.
He turned down that Jets head coach. They wanted to talk to him. He's like, nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, he's uniquely making TV money for a long time. Yeah. He's rich. But it's not like Brian Greasy makes $100,000 right now. I mean, these quarterback coaches, every offensive line coach in the league makes 7 figures. In most professions, you got to be the top at the org chart. You know, in our profession, if you talk, like, you got to generate a lot of revenue. Liam Cohen, you know, like when someone gets in trouble, like gets a DUI, breaks a leg, he's making 4.5. None of that's his problem. It's incredible to be a coordinator. And that's where, you know, Robert Sala, but once you become the guy at the head of the table, it's hard to, like, you go back to the Niners, like, ultimately you got, like, Kyle Shanahan's the boss. Even if you're more secure and you can give him a little shit back, it's still like, it's like a military. Like, you answer to him.
Yeah,
you know, so I do just wonder if you kind of like making the decisions. The money's huge. I think it's easier to stay when you have never done it. Once you've done it, you're like, you get to do the press conferences every week. It's you. Like, these guys are all have huge egos. It's not like Kyle Shanahan quit football before he ever became an offensive coordinator again. Not that he would have to.
No,
but it's like,
you're right.
Him and McVay and these guys, like, they're never going back. And they've gotten to the point, like Andy did probably 6 years into Philly, like, he was never going to have to be a coordinator again. But Pete Carroll got to that point, obviously, like, definitely once early on at USC, like, this guy's head coach only. It's just, once you become kind of infatuated with being the head coach, there's no going back. And I just wonder if you're him, you know, I also just think the Niners job's a little less desirable than it was like when Steve Wilkes got it. Steve Wilkes went, I'm coming here. I'm going to be a head coach. Turns out they made it to the Super Bowl. They fired his ass. And it's like, I don't even know where he's at. But this league's fickle, man. Things change really, really quick.
Let me get into a little bit of 49ers and how good of a job this is, the defensive coordinator job, like you said. You look at this team, and when Saleh was last year, they go to the Super Bowl in 2019. He takes the Jets job after that. So you look at this thing and you say, okay, some of the guys still remain. I mean, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, don't know what's going to happen with Greenlaw. I think he's going to have to take a year-to-year thing. He had an extremely young secondary. Ward's not coming back. Hell, his wife couldn't come back to California, PTSD. So, and you got some safeties where, look, I like Mustafa. He's nice, but that's not a guarantee. And Jared Brown made a ton of mistakes. So in your mind, as you look at this job, like Salah's looking at this, he's looking at Detroit. Like, I think Detroit's better. Aiden Hutchinson comes back. You got really good players in the secondary branch, some young guys that you drafted. So if he had to choose between these two, which would get him back in the hiring cycle, which one would he pick?
Well, if everyone's healthy, which we saw with the Lions wasn't the case, the Lions are the pick. You know, I think that the problem with the 49ers is, you know, Fred Warner and Bosa, like, they have a lot of tread on those tires now. And the other thing is, like, who are their other defensive linemen? That they went all in for Hargrave. Like, let's face it, that backfired. The 1 year he was healthy, he was an underachiever. And then this year, all we heard is like, oh, he's at his best camp, he's in shape, and then boom, game one, done. So they need, like, and listen, I had no problem with them getting rid of Eric Armstead. He was not a reliable player anymore because he was always injured. But you do need some bodies. I mean, when the best defense they had, or defensive line, was in 19. I mean, they went, you know, Buckner, Armstead, D Ford could still play, and Bosa wasn't as good as he is now, but you still had him. So I think that they have to. That's why pick 11. I doubt they take an offensive lineman because Kyle Shanahan. Like, at the end of the day, Kyle Shanahan's told us they don't believe in offensive linemen over skill guys. They literally just did it last year with Ricky Pearsall. It's like, last time I checked, and listen, Ricky looked good at the end of the year, and he's a cool story, and he's easy to root for now. But, like, if you just remove everything that happened to him, which I'm inclined, I hope he has a great career, but I can find Ricky Pearsall's in the 3rd and 4th round. Like, there are only so many offensive linemen, and they love pushing back, like, yeah, but look at those offensive linemen in the 2nd round weren't that good. Well, you got to pick someone. It's like when Kyle's like, well, you claim I don't care about special teams. I invested in all this. It's like me saying, like, yeah, I care about my lawn because I pay my landscaper. It's like, I don't give a shit about my lawn. Kyle, you don't care about special teams.
No,
just because you drafted a kicker in the 3rd round. You want a cookie for that? Like, the guy stinks. So it's like, I knew right when Tim, and I could see his face, I'm like, he's mad.
He did. Oh,
it's like Kyle and John, it's true. We've been at these practices. Special teams practice going on, you walk right by. Hell, I was in Philadelphia, and he didn't care that much about.
I got a great story for you. So I was doing the draft.
Offensive coaches do not like special teams.
No,
I don't like special teams.
No.
But I'll tell you who does. Defensive coaches. They prioritize it.
Well, it's all complimentary football. So I'm in the draft room, right? The year they drafted Moody, they don't have a first rounder because, of course, they gave it away for Trey Lance, which would be really nice to have right now. I digress.
He's turned out to be a good player.
Yeah, dude, we would stand on the sideline during training camp and have to duck. I mean, half the stuff didn't even get reported. I mean, the guy is just terrible. But anyway.
How about he goes to Dallas and can't even sniff Cooper Rush? Sniff. I mean, they had to screw Cooper Rush at the end for his $500,000 bonus. And if I was Cooper Rush, I wouldn't have showed up to that game.
I'd be so pissed. So we're sitting in the draft room right when they draft Jake Moody. And, Kyle and John come in every single time. So they come in, and I guess they had heard me because right when they picked Moody, went, no, like right on the broadcast. So Kyle comes in and he goes, he opens the door, dude, and says, I wanted a running back. And then Lynch starts laughing. They didn't want Moody. They just felt like they had to take him. And now that's turned out to be a bomb and whatever. So you're 100% right. It's they don't care about it, but he tried to defend him on that whole thing. But anyway,
really quick on that. As a draft philosophy, if you are going to take a kicker, obviously the Seabass, that you can't take him in the first round.
No.
You can't even take him in the second round. But if you're picking at the end of the third round with one of those comp picks, I am not going to freak out, but he's got to be good.
Right.
He's got to be good. And let's face it, and you can say he was injured or whatever. He's been shaky from the jump. I think historically, Google where Justin Tucker was drafted. He was
free agent. Yeah, right.
Most of these guys are not picked very high. And if anything, 5th, 6th, 7th round.
Well, I talked to Joe Neddy about it a lot of times. And he was like, look, the first couple of rounds I went, he was a free agent. He's like, I didn't know the league. I mentally wasn't strong. Like, it takes a minute. And then these guys get cut. Like York, the kid that's now, with Cincinnati, was with Cleveland. Like, it takes guys a little while, and they don't know the league, and they don't know what's going on. And then all of a sudden, you lose 3 first-round picks on Trey Lance. You lose a third-rounder on a kicker. And people go, God, why don't the Niners have any depth? Why are they so top heavy financially? Because they blew 3 first-round picks and a third-rounder. Like, that's just what they do. But let me go back to the offensive and defensive lines, because what's really struck me in these playoffs is that if you look at Detroit, you look at Philadelphia, and you even look at the Rams, first of all, they've outdrafted the 49ers like crazy over the last 2 to 3 years. So that's how they've done it. But they took the philosophy, especially the Rams, of the 49ers, which is, we're going to punch you right in the face. And the Rams got sick and tired of it. So they lose Aaron Donald, but they're better along the defensive line. And then they used free agency and the draft to get better and stronger and bigger on the offensive line. So now they can push teams around. In the meantime, the 49ers, as you said, have this philosophy through Chris Forster. We don't need to draft guys high. Now, I understand that with Dominic Pooney, third rounders. I get it. I'm not going to hit guards high. But in terms of like Trent Williams, I don't know that he's guaranteed to come back. Maybe he comes back one more year. On the right side, give me a break. Aaron Banks is a complete bomb. Brendel was on his back half the time. So tell me how you can be a punch you in the face, run the ball first. Kyle, when he gets 30-plus runs, wins games with that offensive line. And then, like you said, Hargrave was a complete bomb, which goes back to trading Buckner, drafting Kinlaw, had to try to undo that. So you
gave him $20 million a year.
It's ridiculous. So now you basically have Bosa, Floyd, who should be a third-round pass rusher, nothing inside really, and then your offensive line is a complete sieve. So now that's your offensive and defensive lines, and your philosophy is I want to punch you in the face. They can't do that anymore. And those teams now that I just mentioned, Philly, Detroit, the Rams, they've outdrafted you, and they're better in the trenches than you. So as you just pointed out, I think they'll come back, and I think the injuries and all these kind of things, but I'm not going to guarantee it because they have a whole offseason where they've got to fix the trenches or else they're not going to touch those teams.
Yeah, I think Kyle, he does believe in the defensive line. Like, I give him credit. They have tried. Like Kinlaw, they swung for the fences in there, and they whiffed. The same thing with Hargrave. Though, my pushback on Hargrave would be giving that was his third contract. Remember, started with the Steelers, then went to the Eagles. Like, you were giving an older guy a third contract who's small. Like, he's, that's the thing. I'm sure you've been to practice. Like, he does not look like Buckner or Armstead.
Right.
So there was inherent risk in there, but they really tried. Like, they value that. They've signed pass rushers. They care about that. The offensive line, again, they're not even hiding it. They've come out and said it because offensively, his philosophy with the zone running scheme, like Trent's such an outlier to them. They knew him in Washington. He's one of the greatest talents in like the history of sports. I mean, he's like Shaquille O'Neal or something. I mean, just There's been like 10 of these on the planet in the history of civilization. But you remove him, like they're cool. Like their best versions are like McGlinchey. They inherited Joe Staley, so they don't get any credit there. They like these guys that, because in the zone running scheme, I don't need to pick you up like Trent and move you. That's the best case. Again, don't even count Trent. Count these like Brendels. Just run your feet down the line of scrimmage. But it's like, what happens? Some of these games, because they always think they're going to dictate the terms. Well, when you're behind, what do you have to do? You got to pass. What does Kyle not want to do? Just turn it into a drop back passing team. Well, guess what the NFL sometimes turns into? That. Why do you think his record was so shitty in these games where he's trailing? Because he can't just play like Andy Reid or Josh Allen or whatever. And that's the whole thing is like, listen, Purdy probably gets too much crap and probably, in a weird way is protected. I mean, down the stretch, he threw some terrible interceptions in some must-win games. Like that's not debatable, right? The Miami interceptions, the Detroit interceptions.
The LA one down the sideline.
The LA one down the like part of his game has got to be like, I never turn the ball over. Yep. Like that's my game. I'm gonna my stat lines. Okay, you're not gonna throw 40 touchdowns. Well, can your stat line look like Herbert, like 20-4? But like he's kind of got a little gunslinger to him, which is ironic because Kyle kind of hates that. But he's so much better than Jimmy. And again, I'm pro Purdy, but like the offensive line in front of him is a joke. And it would be stunning if they drafted, like I would expect them to draft a defensive lineman at 11. I would not expect them to draft an offensive lineman at 11. Would you?
No, I mean, I got excited today because I'm sure you know this. Mel Kiper's 1.0 version came out, and they gave him Kelvin Banks, the tackle out of Texas, which means the player they're not going to get is Kelvin Banks, the tackle out of Texas, because the 1.0 is never accurate. So, I kind of got excited about that. They'll be
the Banks, the kid from LSU, Campbell.
Right.
They're going to be 3 or 4 guys that you could draft there. I promise you that.
Yeah.
Because those wide receivers, a couple of the quarterbacks, a couple of the pass rushers, there's going to be a very, very good offensive lineman prospect at 11. Right?
God,
Tristan Wirfs was sitting right there. I don't know.
Well, that's
Williams 2.0.
But by the way, that's what compounded their problem is they had 13 in that trade for Buckner, and they took Kinlaw. They traded back to 14, and Tampa took Wirfs. It's like
they loved it. They love doing that shit. You know what? They love. Remember when they got Solomon Thomas? They traded back a spot. They love like, look how smart we are.
And the Bears took Trubisky while Mahomes sat there over Mahomes. Oh my God. I mean, anyway, I could go down that all day. In terms of Purdy, go ahead.
Look at the Rams, right? You lose Aaron Donald.
They're crushing it.
The Rams, more than the Niners, were really dependent on like 2 or 3 guys. The Niners were dependent on like 7 or 8.
Right.
And they lose one of them, retires. It's like, what the hell are they going to do? They basically draft 2 guys who are best friends from one of the best defenses in the country who both play like power, strong football, who even if you combine them aren't Aaron Donald, but they're like damn close. I mean, that game, the Eagles game, the 3 best players on the field by a mile were Saquon, Jalen Carter, and Jared Verse. And I had buddies on the Eagles texting me today like, God, that guy's a badass.
Oh, he's so badass. And he's like, I hate you guys, and then I'm going to go get 3 sacks. And if there hadn't been snow, maybe LA wins the game. But
and Fisk, their second rounder,
oh my God,
got hurt early in that game. Like
after a
you
sack.
wonder, so like, do the other defensive tackles that are rotating in? It's just a trickle down effect. Like maybe they still probably lose, but they have a better. Maybe they don't give up both the long runs if Fisk is in the game as a defensive tackle, right?
Well, it's what you just said. It's in Philly and all their youth. You mentioned Jalen Carter, who's even better in his second year, into Kobe Dean. I know he was hurt, but these teams are nailing it. Quinyon Mitchell on the outside, the corner, the Lions are nailing it every year. And then you look at the Niners since the Trey Lance trade. Now, I know in 22 they got Brock Purdy, but nothing else out of that draft. Didn't have a first rounder. 23, really nothing out of that draft. Didn't have a first rounder. Now, this year they look like they have some solid guys, but people are wondering what happened to the Niners. Yeah, absolutely. The injuries are part of the explanation or excuse, no matter depending on how you look at it. But those 2 drafts are awful. In the meantime, the Lions are crushing the draft. The Eagles are crushing the draft. The Rams are crushing the draft. And not just in the first round, all the way through the draft. And people are going, well, what happened to the Niners? What happened to the Niners is the Trey Lance trade killed them. They don't have any depth on this football team. They're not going to be able to really afford anybody with Brock's deal, which I want to ask you about just real quick in a second. But they've gotten passed by. And now they've gotten older. And now these guys are injured. And now in this offseason, they're going to have to decide, who they can keep and who they can't. Like Hufanga, or if Greenlaw wants more than a 1-year make good deal, he's gone.
Yeah, I think Hufanga's gone too.
You think so?
Yeah, he's a safety. You've drafted 2 safeties. Are they perfect? No, but I mean, I think if they could do it all over again, their big mistake is they were like obsessed with Ayuk because of what had just happened, and then he started driving them nuts, and I think they turned on him, and they would have gladly traded him. But then he kind of pussed out because he's like, I don't want to go to Cleveland. I don't want to go to New England. So they were kind of
be careful what you wish for.
They were kind of stuck in this middle ground. Like, I think the Niners were cool. Like, we wish we would have done this before the draft. Ayuk's like, I hate you guys, but I want to play here. And then, I mean, it's no fault of anybody. He snaps his leg. I mean, it's kind of a disastrous situation. I mean, it really is a disaster.
But here, as a former scout,
if they could do it over again, you just
Well,
this offense, they're never going to treat a guy like Jamar Chase, or AJ Brown. So just trade the guy. Like, you're not going to pay $28 million for 75 catches. And he's just, even when he's good, what is he? His best is like 7th through 10th.
Right.
You know, it's like, just trade him. You're going to draft a wide receiver in the first round. You already got Debo, Jawan Jennings. You can manipulate running backs. You got Kittle. Like, if they could do it over again, they 100% would have traded him for a 2nd and a 3rd round pick. And I think that was the hard part. It's like, we can't trade this guy for less than a 1st. Well, they weren't going to get a 1st, but if you get a 2nd and a 3rd, trade him somewhere, use those picks. Like, I think that's got to be regretted. I think they regretted that thing when they were into training camp.
Well, I didn't get that whole thing. And as a scout, explain it, because there are the elite positions in the league. You got to have a pass rusher. You got to have edge guys. You got to have left tackles. You got to have corners. Obviously, you got to have a quarterback. That's not a position. I mean, especially nowadays where guys come into the league and they can play. I mean, there's going to be 10 or 12 or 15 receivers this next draft that are going to be impact players. I'm not saying at a Jamar Chase level or at a Malik Neighbors level, but I am saying, like, they're going to be fine and they'll grow into really good receivers. Plus, like you said, I think Debo's gone, because I look at the situation. I say, okay, Ayuk's coming back. Juwan Jennings is really good, and hopefully Pearsall's in the slot. Where does Debo fit? But like you said, I would have just let Ayuk go to wherever, because that's not a position where you don't have leverage. Quarterback, yeah, you got to pay Brock. Sorry, there's not enough of them to go around. But receiver, Brandon Ayuk shouldn't have had the leverage on the 49ers. That's crazy.
No, it was. I think that once they got that Amari Cooper deal, the 2nd rounder and Amari, they're like, what time's the plane flight?
All right, real quick.
I give IU credit. He's like, I am not going there. I don't care if they give me $100 million.
Man, I would have got him to Pittsburgh. Kyle running up the stairs. I mean, that's a true story. It's like somebody should have tripped Kyle on the way up the stairs. It's like, dude, get him to Pittsburgh, man. Like, whatever. Brock's deal is the biggest thing around. It's going to be talked about a ton nationally because he's the latest. And everybody around here is like, I wouldn't give him $55 million. Like, I get it. But good quarterbacks get paid great. And I don't see any reason why Brock is going to be different. Didn't have a great year, as we just talked about. So how do you think this handles out? And not only the money, but around here, we're talking a lot about how quickly it can get done, because he's got to get on the same page as Pearsall and Ayuk and all these different things. He's got to do that thing where they go down to San Diego and throw together, and his agent's not letting him do that unless he's got a deal in place. So how quickly can this thing happen?
It's a good question. I mean, what type numbers are we talking? Are we talking like Jordan Love Tua, or is we banging the table for Trevor Lawrence now? And I get like I've been to the Super Bowl, those guys haven't, but I saw you with a normal NFL team, and you were the reason they lost these games. I mean, truly, that Lions game. And whenever I hear like, where was the defense? Well, the defense has been terrible. They had a bunch of injuries. Ask Jared Goff. Jared Goff couldn't make it a bad decision, and he didn't. And Brock threw 2 horrible interceptions. The Miami game was there to win. Pick. The LA game was the season. So, and it's like he threw a pick. It was 12-6. And then you watch like Stafford go on the road in that terrible weather. Like, we've seen Brock now in weather games. Like, there were just some concerns.
Not good.
Yeah, I just think you're talking about giving a guy $200 million for a guy that isn't Drew Brees. Like, he turns the ball over. That's his thing. Like, he's kind of a turn the ball over guy. Like, that's my thing. And I get he's solid. He really is. I mean, I'd rather have him than Tua, right? But that's like, he's not even in the stratosphere of the top guys. Like, is anyone even arguing that anymore? No. So it's like, okay, yeah, I know Dak. That's the thing. It's like everyone's like, whoa, Dak and Trevor Lawrence, all these guys. We all make fun of them for signing those type guys. So now you're going to do the same thing with this? Because would I give him the Baker Mayfield contract in a heartbeat?
Right.
But it's like everyone laughs at that, think he's going to get double $100 million. Right now, would Tampa Bay trade Baker Mayfield straight up for Brock Purdy? Not a chance in hell.
Right.
And listen, Baker's only had the 1 year, but Baker's was the number one pick for a reason. Like, he has an explosive arm. Now, Purdy, and you've seen Baker, he got married, had a kid. He's kind of like mellowed out. He's gotten skinnier. Look at him run around. Like, I would say his feet are kind of an element. So it's like, I think they're very similar players in terms of smaller, scramble guys a little bit. But Baker's arm is like top 10 arm in the league. Purdy's just is not. And it comes up in some of these big moments. We've seen him play big-time defenses. 2 years ago when they made the Super Bowl in the regular season, remember the AFC North was good? Cleveland, awful. Cincinnati last year, their defense was much better. Awful. Obviously, the Raven game. And I get so tired of people like, you nitpick this and this. It's like, well, I don't know. I watch top quarterbacks, and it's like the NBA. The NBA hands out maxes left and right. So why the same couple teams win everything? It's like, well, their max players are actually max players, and all these other guys should be making like $15 million. So it's like, yeah, you want to max them. And I understand like the salary cap next year won't impact that much. It still actually has an impact on the Niners because right now his salary cap hit is like 1. So even if it is small, it's still 10 or 12, like Jalen Hurts. That's still 10 or 12 or 15x what it was. So it's like, yeah, I mean,
it's still going to matter.
It's a very complicated situation. And anyone that argues differently, I just think is an idiot because the reality is you could argue, luckily all the top quarterbacks, I mean, the big four, Lamar, Mahomes, Josh, and Burrow are in the AFC. So you don't have to play them in the playoffs, which I think makes it a little like if the 49ers were an AFC team, I'd be like, under no circumstances can I get a contract. Like it just, you guys are morons. The conversation's different in the NFC. You got Jalen Hurts who can't throw from the pocket. Jared Goff, now granted, he might have been concussed, was, crumbling like a cookie. Yeah. Jordan Love, one great game, one awful game. Who knows there? So a lot of question marks in the NFC. But still, like, you got to win games throughout the regular season, And I watched the Niners couldn't beat Miami Dolphins. Couldn't beat the Miami Dolphins, who'd become like a joke.
Well, I look at Brock like Goff. Like when everything is right around him, he's going to be good. And Goff mainly played inside this year. He had thunder and lightning for most of the year in the backfield. He's got Amon-Ra. He's got Laporta. He's got all these. Jameson Williams is coming around. So he's got all these weapons. And he's playing inside. So he's got a perfect element and he plays really, really well. And early in the season, people were talking about even MVP for him. And then things go a little bit awry and that's that. So that's how I see Brock, is that if everything's great around Brock is going to be really, really good. That's how it was last year when they went to the Super Bowl. This year, I think he just tried to do too much, like you said. I mean, he gets guys out, and the throw to the Rams down the sidelines, they were still in the playoff hunt. Juwan Jennings is double bracketed, and Brock said after the game, because he's small and he's in the pocket, he said he didn't even see the throw. He didn't even see it. He just threw it up there, and it's like, as you said, your greatest superpower is the fact that you weren't turning the ball over the first 2 years. You can't just guess if Juwan Jennings is open. That's trying to do too much. So if he stays with himself and has everybody, he's good. But my problem, and you know this better than anybody in the NFL, is if you don't give Brock the money, which it's just he's bracketed with that money with these guys who've gotten paid, what are you going to do? Go out and get Sam Darnold or try to rehab Daniel Jones? I mean, you don't have any choice, do you?
Well, let's use – well, he's got another year of his contract.
Right.
Brock Purdy's going to hold out? Okay, let's see. Like, I mean, honestly.
I feel like if you're his agent, you probably tell him that, right?
Brock's not saying any of this. I do not think he would hold out. I do not. He is making, and this is the thing with the Cowboys, he is making infinitely more off the field because he's the 49ers quarterback.
Yeah. He bought 10 Toyota trucks for like $850,000. They didn't charge him for them, but still, he's fine.
These guys, he's making millions off the field because of the 49ers. This would not be the case on any of these other teams, and we all know that he wouldn't be the starter on these other teams, right? If he would have been as a 7th-round pick, this would not have happened. He benefits from being the 49ers quarterback. Now, let's use the Jared Goff comp. Jared Goff is like, 6'5"? Mm-hmm. He can see over the line of scrimmage. Jared Goff was also the number 1 pick in the draft because he can sling the ball. Jared Goff throws the ball from the pocket better than Brock Purdy. Now, Brock's a better athlete, but like you do have to win from within the pocket, and Purdy can be a little hit or miss there just based on, the size. It's hard for Kyler Murray to see. I think sometimes it's hard for Jalen to see. Anything under like 6'2", the average size of an offensive lineman, even your guard and center, are like 6'4". Obviously, your two tackles are typically very tall. So when you're looking outside the numbers, like it's a huge benefit. When I used to work with you and go to all these Raider games, which seems like a lifetime ago, I can't believe I got paid enough money to do that.
Mark Davis, that's what we have in common. Mark Davis loves us.
but the old version of the quarterback, I saw this in Philly for years, but I mean for like 3 years, saw on the sideline every Raider game, and so many guys in their division like Alex Smith, Phillip Rivers, Carson Palmer's in the league. The size of these Joe Flacco, Ben Roethlisberger, it's like they could now the athleticism you have to have now because offensive lines are much crappier. But it was so easy for Carson Palmer to sit there and see. Eli Manning to sit there and see. When I was in Philly, Michael Vick, shorter guy, harder to see. And that is a problem. And it's hard. Like, the other thing is Jared Goff, like Brock Purdy, smaller hands. Both guys, red flag, outside elements. Not debatable. That's not, there's no narrative there. That's a fact. Well, Jared Goff plays in a perfectly controlled environment for 8 to 9 games. And listen, they've the last couple of years, they've played home playoff games, right? Purdy, even in the Bay, like sometimes it can get a little wet, right? In November, December. Like
he's atrocious in those games. Atrocious.
He's bad. So I think they're just a lot. I'm all for the guy. I offer him $100 million purely guaranteed right now, 3 years. His agent might hang up on me. I'll say OTA start. I give him the date. See you then.
Yeah.
That's what you got another year of contract. Like I'm not. Hell, I'd pull a Jerry Jones. We'll wait this out. I'd rather feel better about this. And this notion, like, what are you going to do? Well, what's he going to do? Where's he going to go? This isn't the 2017 NBA. You don't just say I want out. Like that's not how it works.
Well, I mean,
time for the NFL to shift back and just take hold. Like, and for the 49ers specifically, not just to get bent over in these deals. Like, yeah, we don't feel as comfortable right now handing out $200 million guaranteed to a guy that, let's face it, like of all the talent, if you just took the 32 GMs they drafted from scratch, is he going in the top 10? If John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan aren't drafting in the top 10.
No.
No chance. None.
I mean, there was look, I like the guy, and I'm not trying to rip him either, but there was a reason why he was picked where he was picked, number one.
I'm not acting like he go 32.
Right.
But so you're talking about guys not a top 10. It's very NBA. So you're just going to give him $200 million? Why? Because Kyle likes him? Well, I've seen Kyle like a lot of quarterbacks that most of the league questions, So it's like, listen, there's got to be a balance. Kyle's not exactly coming off the year where everyone's comparing him to Bill Walsh here. So let's pump the brakes on just giving him, the unlimited power here.
You're on fire, bro. You're on absolute fire.
Well, I just think.
I see what you're saying.
You have a bad year. Like, can we just take a deep breath? Kyle, I'm pro Kyle Shanahan. I think.
Absolutely.
Like,
I know
fire
that.
Kyle Shanahan. Like, give me a break. He's not getting fired. But like, is there anyone in that building that's like this, and this are an embarrassment right now, a pure embarrassment? Or is he just at the point where he's just totally untouchable? John can kind of talk to him, but what's John going to get in daily fights with him? It's like, I don't have the energy to do that. But no one on his staff, Jed's not telling him. So it's like, they're just going to do whatever he wants to do.
And based on it, I know you saw the press conference. I mean, there was like, we might keep Dre Greenlaw. We'll see on Debo. Yeah, Hargrave's gone. But then when it came around to asking the question to Kyle about Brock, it was like he was a long-lost son. It was like, oh, my God. So, look.
Can't wait to get in the film room and watch all those interceptions.
He's going to be here forever. And, so that concerns me because, like you said, you almost lose leverage when you say, God, I love this guy so much. And it's like, well, slow down a little bit because, like you said, Parag is – I mean, Kyle is in charge of everything, but he's not in charge of the purse strings. And if Parag doesn't like the deal – he's not going to do it. So my big thing is they're going to get a deal done, but they got to get a deal done quickly. And if they don't, and then this guy starts holding out, then, and he's not in the OTAs and all that kind of stuff. Then are we looking at what we were looking at with Ayuk last year times 10 because they can't get off to a great start because he's late?
I also think when you look at Kyle, you go, well, he's his father's son, Mike, who was like best friends with Bill. We're both pretty cold-blooded. Right. And they were like, they would, Mike, obviously, as a young coach, worked for the 49ers, just had a, short stint with Al Davis. We well know that's, the Shanahans and the Davises, you got to be careful on that subject. But like those guys wouldn't get emotionally attached to everybody. Like I got no problem being emotionally attached to Trent Williams or Nick Bosa. But like, I'm sorry, Brandon Ayuk, I'm not emotionally attached to you. The Brock Purdy thing, it feels very unlike anything Mike or Bill would do. And I thought that was part of Kyle, like cold-blooded. He once did it with DeForest Buckner. And since then, they've been very emotional with a lot of their signings, and they get in these positions. They get a little like the Cowboys, where it's like, oh, this is our guy. It's like,
Dude,
well,
that ain't
can we
good.
just be careful about that? The Eagles will like drop you in the river if you fucking drop a pass. You know? McVay, Jared Goff had 2 bad games. McVay's like, I hate this guy.
Well, I mean, you got to be ruthless. We were talking about it earlier. It's like you got the Bill Walsh thing, and then you got the Al Davis thing. And Al's just like, not only do I want to keep guys forever, and Al admitted that he was emotional, but it's like anybody the Niners dropped, he wanted, like Roger Craig or, Jerry Rice or Ronnie Lott or anybody. He's like, I'll take those old guys till they die. Where Bill Walsh was like, you want to go across the bridge? Go for it, man. That's not how I'm going to operate business. So,
Kyle takes all his anger out on firing special teams coaches. Like, way to go there.
God. I mean, how did Brian Snyder even make it past like week 6? It was like every single week. And it was like, you fired him at the end of the year. You're about 12 weeks too late, man.
I can't believe I haven't texted Kawakami, but the Kyle snapped on that question. The Kyle. That's
he lives for that though, man.
For all these people, these millions of people that have watched every snap so far of your coaching career, that's a middle finger to them. Like, give me a break. We for those of us that have been to your practices, I don't blame you. I hate special teams as well. We all do. But you're the head coach, and you don't even look that way.
He would go to he would do during training camp. He would go into the tent and start doing the press conferences while they were doing special teams. Like, I've seen it. Like, he doesn't even watch. He goes and starts the press conference in the tent, and while special teams is going on.
They wanted credit. Like, we signed George Odom. Like, people sign special teams players. Do you care?
Jake Moody.
Monday through Friday, like, hey, Brian, what's our game plan here?
Right.
Like, no, how do we get Brock Purdy this? It's like, Kyle, you're the head coach here.
He doesn't even want to look at defense. He's like, he wants somebody like Saleh or whoever, just like, take defense off my plate too. But anyway, I've kept you long enough.
I do think, just all in on this.
Yeah, go ahead.
It does feel a little, unless sometimes it works, right? Bill went back to Josh, whatever was that, like when Bill O'Brien left to Penn State and he rehired him and they had a great run. But sometimes when you do that in coaching, like, can you just hire whoever? Like, Andy Reid has hired people he doesn't know.
Well, isn't New England doing that again? Isn't Josh McDaniel going to be Vrabel's OC?
How many times can the guy go back to the franchise? I just wonder, like, have you guys not? One thing's pretty clear, right? Once D'Amico, who they didn't necessarily luck into because they gave him the chance, but Kyle was on the staff when they drafted him, so he knew the guy. That once, like, they don't have some other D'Amico on the staff. I mean, last year he wanted these other guys and had to take Sorensen, who clearly was probably picked number 10 on the list,
right,
and who they like, but they thought was a little over his head. And in fairness to him, like, the defense, is the coordinator to blame for everything this year? I don't know, but you're not going to fire Lynch. I just wonder, going back to the well with Saleh, who's good, but it's also hard to tell, like, was he actually, because I had talked to people with the Jets. I don't know how hands-on he was when he was, early in the season when the defense was good before he got fired. I think part of the reason they fell off is because Ulbrich, who used to just be able to defensive coordinator, had to do all this other shit.
Right.
So then it kind of fell. I don't think Saleh was sitting there with Ulbrich Monday, Tuesday, getting ready for the Wednesday meeting, like game planning. Just, I don't know. I just think there's a lot of it's an easy one. It makes for a great headline. Is it just some lock, like being awesome? Like, why weren't they interviewing, like, Dennis Allen is a good defensive coordinator, not a good head coach.
Right.
Lou Anarumo for the Bengals, legit defensive coordinator, just punked you like last year. Why weren't they all over these guys?
Yeah, that's what I think from it. Like, Bones Fossil. How did Bones Fossil get to Tennessee and the Niners didn't talk to him? I mean, he's one of the best around. He authored the kickoff rule. Like, how's that guy not?
Because you know what they wanted to do? They're paying Sorensen probably
right,
a couple $1 million and just, like, keep him on the staff and just have him do that instead of pay him to go away.
Right.
It's like, and props to Sorensen. Like, screw you. Like,
exactly.
You fire me and want me to go coach the kickers? Like, I mean, get the hell out of here. Give me a break.
Hey, real quick, what do you know about Brandon Staley? Because I popped this up earlier. So in 2020, oh, really? So in 2020, his Rams teams are awesome, right? He has a great year. Then he goes to the Chargers for 3 years. The defenses absolutely suck. And then he's part of a team that was their worst defense in a long time, some kind of a, contributor defense, and they suck. So he has one good year in 2020, 3 terrible years with the Chargers, a terrible year last year, and he's your backup plan at DC? I can't find anybody who likes him. Like, even not only as a DC, but like as a person. that he's like this arrogant jerk. That's what a lot of people think.
I had a buddy that worked with him with the Bears. It's how he got to start. Fangio kind of put him on the map.
Yeah.
Thought he's never been around a guy. This guy had just come, I think, at the time from like John Carroll. He had not been working in the NFL. He'd been a smaller school guy, which, again, people make the jump all the time. There's usually some humility that starts with like, as I started as a wide receiver coach, or I think he was a outside linebacker coach. He said this guy came in like he was Belichick 2.0, knew everything. He's the most arrogant guy. Fangio, actually, once you get to know him, he's like, is the coolest guy, very down to earth. This guy was the opposite, but he was like, he's knowledgeable. I think the Rams situation is 2020. There are no fans. He's got one of the greatest players ever in the peak of his powers. Their team is just good. Like, is it like going to Jacksonville and turning them into a top 5 defense? I think looking back, that was a little overrated, like that moment. I think his true colors came out with the Chargers. Honestly, if Kyle makes him the defensive coordinator, I might quit the Niners and become a Raiders fan. I do think
again.
I'll talk some shit about Kyle, like in jest.
Right.
I support Kyle Shanahan. I'm glad he's the coach of the 49ers. If he does that, all the criticism that would come and the people that just like internet trolls, I think there would be a lot of validity behind.
People are so pissed.
He would people would be pissed.
Yeah,
I'd rather just bring back Sorensen
than
name Brandon Staley.
No, I brought it up this morning because I wrote a piece on it, and I said, okay, I think Saleh's going to be the guy, but I said, if not, it sounds like, that Staley's the backup plan. And I did that exactly what you said. I showed the numbers for how good his defense was in 2020, but then with the Chargers, points, yards, terrible. Last year, Niners, we know he's deeply associated with that. And I'm like, how does this guy become? And I heard the same thing you did, which is this arrogant jerk kind of a guy that thinks he walks around and thinks he knows everything. And I'm thinking, okay, that's 4 years in a row that he's been a major part of bad defenses. How do you get the gig? Like, there's got to be somebody better out there, right? My God.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Kyle can be arrogant too, but he's like, hey, I was born into football royalty. I've been an offensive coordinator in the NFL for 15 years. I've taken this franchise that was dead when I showed up to multiple Super Bowls. Like, listen, he's got a little backbone to do it. I led Matt Ryan to an MVP. Think how that's aged. That was an incredible accomplishment. Brandon Staley acts like he's Kyle Shanahan. I mean, that's and I don't know if I think there was an agent connection why he originally got the job.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
That was
man. It really would. I mean, some of the comments, I'm sure you saw them, just kind of went viral early on with the Chargers of like Joey Bosa, like taking subtle shots. And clearly, like Minter and Harbaugh just know what they're doing.
Right.
It was like, oh my, Derwin James, he hadn't smiled in like 3 years. He's happier than a pig in shit all season. It's like, these guys.
This guy's gone.
And the 40, I still can't believe the 49ers hired him.
Yeah.
Like I think last year.
Kyle likes. I mean, the word is Kyle likes him. Kyle likes him. He thinks he's smart. I mean, that is true. That's what he thinks. That's what I've heard. So anyway.
He's been angling, stabbing Sorensen in the back all season long, just stabbing everyone in the back.
Kyle's grabbing it. What's going on defensively? Hey, man, that's on him, man. The Rook. It's on the Rook.
I don't know Kasurek personally, but I know his kind. I knew his mentor Jim Washburn. I can't see any chance on God's green earth that Chris Kasurek likes Brandon Staley. No,
they're opposites. Complete. You got a grinder, a screamer, and this guy coming down. No way, man.
No chance. That's got. Remember when like Joe Judge, he became the head coach of the Giants. Yeah. There was this former Cowboy who was O-line coach. They got into a fight. Remember? They got into like a fist fight. Like the 49ers have that written all over it with one of their assistant coaches if Brandon Staley's.
That's classic. Bro, I appreciate your time, man. How's everything going in Arizona? How's 3 and out? How's Cowherd? How's everything going?
Life's good, just swinging along, podcasting, just trying to pay the bills.
Things are good, man. That's awesome. I got to get down there because, like I said, George is down there. He just turned 21. I haven't even been able to buy him a drink yet because I'm like, you want to hang out on your birthday? He's like, absolutely not. I'm leaving like 6 days before. He drove with 2 of his buddies go to SC. One goes to UCLA, so he picks them up in LA and then goes. And then he lives in a house down there in Tempe with like 6 other guys, big pool in the backyard, huge backyard. Oh. And they had this raging party that he sent me a picture. I thought he was at a concert. I thought he was at like some concert.
Couldn't move in the backyard.
Dude, there's hundreds of people. There's people jumping off the roof into the pool. I'm like, this is your birthday party in your backyard? He's like, oh yeah, it's unbelievable.
What's his rent for a room in a 6-bedroom? $500?
Dude, I wish it was $500. It's like twice that.
Seriously?
But it's a nice house, but it's not bad. I mean, for down there, and he's right next to campus. But you know how it is down there, man. It's just that's heaven on earth, bro. I mean, that's, that's not bad.
Tempe when you're 21, it's just your own little bubble
So
of just
ridiculous.
Incredible. Like I look back, Cal Poly where I went was a fun school.
Right.
If I could do it over again, I can't even believe that I didn't apply here, let alone I applied to U of A.
Yeah.
Which it never really crossed my mind. I would, if I could do it, I would have been in an Arizona. I'd still be going to school at 40 years old.
Well, dude,
he's been in school for 20 years. Like,
he's got some pretty decent discipline because I'd have been out of there in a year.
Oh.
He's on track. He's doing really good. And I told him
he's going to graduate in 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's doing all the broadcast stuff. And so we'll see what happens. But
you need to tell him you got 70 years of life after college, potentially. I stretch that thing. What is the rush?
Hey, I'm playing for 4 years and I'm done, man. That's all. That's all I know. I'm playing for 4 years.
George, take out a loan. Stay in
it. Yeah, I would. Absolutely. So everything's cool. You're doing the 3 and out and Coward and everything's good. So are you married or engaged? What's
we're getting married here in a month and a couple weeks.
Nice. Dude, outkicked your coverage, but it's cool, man. You look good. You tanned up, playing a lot of golf.
Well, I once the football season comes down the stretch with college, it's just usually my golf days are like Friday is usually I got nothing to do, and then Saturdays. It gets a little chilly here, so 60 degrees.
It does actually. Yeah.
I just you just football. I just kind of chill December, January, but
all right,
February. I might play tomorrow. So.
Yeah. All right, man. I know you got to run. I really appreciate your time. Again, check out 3 and Out at John Middlekauff. As it says, he's got the ticker going down there. NFL Super Genius, friend of the show. And I appreciate you, man. I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time, brother. I'll talk to you later. All right. That is the great John Middlekauff joining us. He is awesome, as you can tell. Check out the 3 and Out podcast at John Middlekauff. He is absolutely great, and he tells it like he sees it. So we got Middlekauff on there. What'd you think of Middlekauff? I think Middlekauff's an old friend of mine, and he is awesome. And like I said, he was a scout in the league and just does a ton of stuff. And it was very cool to see Middlekauff. So what did you think of that? We did, what did we do today? Almost 3 hours, man. It's 10 to 11. Had a lot of good stuff. I didn't get to, we got the solid chances. We got the Staley, not a ringing endorsement. Coaching, we got the 49ers a day. We played that today in 1989. Bill Walsh called his final play as head coach of the 49ers. Middlekauff is what we just did right there. Hall of Fame is Hall of Good. Ichiro, Billy Wagner, we talked about. I didn't get to Golden State blow it up. Did some off topics. I'm going to save the caboose for tomorrow since we've been going so long today. But had a lot of good stuff. The author of that Golden State blow it up, the Warriors should blow it up, Kevin O'Connor. I'm in contact with Kevin. We're going to try to get Kevin on the show tomorrow. We've also got Papa on the radar. He actually got a release to come on the show. We got a lot of other good stuff coming as well, so I'll let you know what we got going on. We got a couple other things that we've got, but really good guests for the rest of the week as well. So anything I missed today, anything you guys want to talk about, real quick, I just want to let you know, remember, website is up. I've shown you that today a couple of times, so if you forget, what is it? John Lund Radio, John Lund Unleashed, John Lund Unleashed Pod. Just go to JohnLundUnleashed.com, JohnLundUnleashed.com. I update the blog every day. Update the podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get them, but you can get it there as well. We put the whole show up there, and then, like I said, I write a blog, and then later I'll hit the button right after the show for the podcast, Apple, Spotify. I will get on the blog. I will have the full show up at YouTube as well if you want to rewatch it, and please make sure that you subscribe to John Lund Unleashed Pod on YouTube. Also, you can watch on Instagram and X every single day. And then the last thing I'll tell you, we'll separate, if you just want to hear the Middlekauff interview, we'll separate that out on the YouTube page as well. And also, last thing, we'll make sure that we update everything and then make sure that you're joining everything. We'll do the exclusive if you become a Lund loyalist. We'll do the exclusive videos, chats, all those kind of things. What else did I miss? Did I miss anything else? JohnLundUnleashed.com, and make sure that you're subscribing on YouTube. Let me just double check before we get out of here. All of our fun people who are watching on Instagram as well. Bunch of people on the Instagram. Very cool today. And a bunch of people watching. Let me see how X did today. How did we do on X? Let me go back to my profile here. At John Lund Radio. You can watch on X and take us on the go as well. Nice. Good amount of viewers there as well. So very good stuff today. I hope you enjoyed Middlekauff. I hope you enjoyed all of our conversations as well. And if I didn't get to as many thoughts today, I apologize. We'll make sure we do it. So what is today? Wednesday? Wednesday edition of the show. So Thursday tomorrow, guest, I'm firming those up. I'm hoping for Kevin O'Connor from Yahoo, who wrote the piece about the Warriors. They got to blow them up. Oh, one last thing. I knew what I wanted to do. I know what I wanted to do. Kings and Warriors tonight. And I know we have a lot of Kings fans in the house and a lot of Kings fans hang out on the show. Do you want to do a post game? Would you be up for the post game to do the Kings and the Warriors tonight? So if you don't get that in right now, let me know at John Lund Radio on Instagram. Let me know. You can hit me up on Instagram and X. You can hit me up, JohnLundUnleashed.com. Put the comments right here after the show. Any of those things. If you want to do a post game tonight for the Kings and the Warriors, that's where we become democratic. If you want to do that, we will absolutely do that tonight. So just let me know. A lot of people on the Papa thing. Yeah, Papa, I don't know if it's going to be this week. We're trying to dot I's, cross T's, and hit all that kind of stuff. But definitely we'll have Papa on at some point today. So that's what we're going to do. And we've got some other stuff that we'll tell you about. But yeah, Papa's going to come on shortly. Hope you enjoyed Middlekauff today. We'll get him on as well. What did you think? Did you like the show today? Good show today. I thought it was above average today. Tomorrow we'll get more into the Warriors after the Kings game tonight. And like I said, if you want to do a post-game show tonight after the game, I got nothing better going on, and my wife really doesn't like me. So that would be tremendous. All right. I think that's it. Did everybody have a good day today? Thank you. By the way, a lot of people hung out for the 3 hours today. I could not be happier. Thank you very much, man. A lot of people, a lot of our regulars, absolutely. Look at Antonio. I hate that beam. A lot of people hung out today. So I really enjoyed you hanging out for 3 hours. We really had a great time, and I hope you enjoyed episode number 38. Thanks for the people watching on X, Instagram. Please subscribe at John Lund Unleashed Pod. And if you missed anything, you can go to the YouTube page. We'll separate everything out. We'll separate out the interviews. We'll do all that kind of stuff. I'll bring another short and hit up the blog on JohnLundUnleashed.com. Have a tremendous Wednesday. I'm glad you hung out. We had a great time today. Really enjoyed it. Have a wonderful Wednesday. We'll probably talk to you tonight on a post game. Definitely tomorrow at 8 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for hanging out. Have a great day.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at JohnLundUnleashed.com. JohnLundUnleashed.com.
Goodbye!